Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Wednesday, March 17th, 2021 council meeting to order. It is now 6:07 p.m. First, please stand and join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Now read the COVID script into the record. Pursuant to the City of Homestead COVID-19 local state of emergency and executive order for hybrid and virtual public meetings dated November 20th, 2020, this will be a hybrid city council meeting in accordance with authorized communications, media technology protocols as provided on the city's website and the meeting agendas. This hybrid meeting allows for the public to participate live during the hybrid meeting by calling in, or Cisco WebEx, or physically appearing. Please note that due to COVID-19, there will be limited occupancy available in the council chambers. Face coverings must be worn by attendees at all times. In addition, the public will be subject to temperature checks and COVID screenings will be required. The hybrid meeting can also be viewed live on the City Access channel or city website at cityofhomestead.com. The city will be accepting public comments as part of the hybrid meeting, which can be emailed to publiccomments@cityofhomestead.com. Public comments are limited to 300 words per comment. Public comments on specific agenda items should include your name, address, the item you'd like to comment on, and your comment. Specific comments can be submitted up until noon Tuesday, March 16th, 2021, and reviewed by the City Council as part of the record. General public comments should also include your name, address, and your comment, and can be submitted up until 30 minutes following the end of this hybrid City Council meeting and will be included in the minutes. Further details and instructions concerning public participation in the hybrid meeting are referenced in the City of Homestead Virtual Meetings Quick Start Guide located on the city's website. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Councilman Roth?
Here.
Councilman Shelley?
Here.
Councilwoman Avila?
Here.
Councilman Fletcher?
Here.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Here.
Vice Mayor Faircloth Staggers?
Here.
Mayor Losner?
Here. Thank you. Are there any deletions, additions, or deferrals?
No, Mayor.
Thank you. First item tonight, item 4, the consent agenda, tabs number 1 through 7. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move it.
Moved by Councilman Roth.
Second.
Are there any further questions or comments on the consent agenda? None appearing. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, and Madam Manager, I believe you had
Yes.
requested a couple of seconds here.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. I appreciate that. I wanted to let the council know that as of April 1st, our CDBG consultant, Calvin Knowles, will no longer be with us. He's accepted a position with an engineering firm, and as he described it, they came knocking at his door with an opportunity that was too good to pass up. So Calvin's been involved from the beginning of the city's entitlement CDBG program 13 years ago, and he also worked in Homestead with CDBG after Hurricane Andrew. So he has an in-depth understanding of the city and the issues it has faced. He has worked closely with local nonprofits and city departments, identifying projects and services that would benefit our community while complying with the ever so challenging HUD federal guidelines. Calvin has not only ensured that the city has been in compliance with those guidelines, but he has been a delight to work with, always accessible, knowledgeable, and helpful. And he will be sorely missed by us. Calvin, I hope you're on. I know you're on for consent. You have our sincere appreciation for your years of dedication to assisting the city. And on behalf of all of us, we wish you much success in future endeavors.
Thank you so much.
Means a lot. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam
Mayor,
Manager.
if I may?
And Calvin, yes, Vice Mayor.
Yes, thank you. Wow, this is not welcoming news, Kate. I know I've had a lot of interaction with Calvin since I've been on the council regarding CDBG, and he's always been extremely patient, very knowledgeable, and willing to do what's in the best interest of the city, ensuring that we are compliant with all of the federal regulations. So I appreciate the support that you have provided the city of Homestead, Calvin, and probably don't, probably a surprise for me to say this, but I'm really going to miss you. Thank you for pushing back when it was necessary, but more importantly, thank you for your professionalism. All the best to you now and always. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that very much, and I appreciate your input too, and I appreciate you pushing me to embrace public services, which I never liked. So kudos to everyone.
Thank you. So it was a win-win.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. I know there's been a very long and involved history there, and you know, your working institutional and historical knowledge will be missed. But again, congratulations and thank you. All right. Next item on our agenda, item 5, public hearings, ordinances, land use items, etc. Mr. White.
Yes, please be advised the following items on the agenda are quasi-judicial in nature. If you wish to comment upon any of these items, please indicate the item number you would like to address when the announcement regarding the quasi-judicial item is made. An opportunity for persons to speak on each item will be made available after the applicant and staff have made their presentations on each item. Swearing in, all testimony, including public testimony and evidence, will be made under oath or affirmation. Additionally, each person who gives testimony may be subject to cross-examination. If you do not wish to either be cross-examined or sworn, your testimony will be given its due weight. The general public will not be permitted to cross-examine witnesses, but the public may request the council to ask questions of staff or witnesses on their behalf. Full agenda packet on each item is hereby entered into the record. Persons representing organizations must present evidence of their authority to speak for the organization. Further details of the quasi-judicial procedures may be obtained from the clerk. In accordance with Code Section 2-591, any lobbyist must register before addressing the council on any of the following items. At this time, council members must disclose any ex parte communications concerning tab 8 on the agenda.
Councilman Shelley, any ex parte communication on tab 8? Mr. Roth, Councilwoman? No, nor have I. Nothing on this matter.
So at this time, I would ask the clerk to swear in any persons who wish to testify on any quasi-judicial item to raise your right hand, be sworn by the clerk.
Do you hereby swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God? Thank you.
Tab 8 is the first reading of an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving the rezoning requested by BC Dental Group, LLC, from Hotel, Motel, and Institutional R4 zoning district to Professional Business Restricted B1A zoning for an approximately 0.327 acre parcel of land located at 805 Northwest 1st Avenue, as legally described in Exhibit A, providing for conflict, severability, and providing for an effective date. This is first reading.
Thank you, Mr. White. Mr. Gordino?
Yes, sir. This is almost like a housekeeping item in the sense that we've got a dental office that's there. The land use that's in the comp plan isn't implemented by the zoning that they have. They have an RU4 zoning, and in the comp plan, they are professional mixed use. And so what we do is the comp plan says, hey, you're professional mixed use, you are implemented by these zoning categories, and it lists them, and R4 is not one of those categories. So they're going to B1A, which is one of those categories. Now the comp plan and the zoning match, and I believe that in the future they want to be able to further develop the property. This enables them to do that. So it's a bit of housekeeping. It's odd sometimes the land use and zoning don't match. This is one of those cases that we found out. We'll clean it up, and they're on their way to do whatever they need to do in the future. So we're recommending approval.
Thank you. What gave rise to this? Is it something they made inquiry on, or?
Yeah, I think what they ultimately wanted to do was expand the dental practice, and they really couldn't do that if the land use and zoning didn't match. So they've got it cleaned up now, and if they need to do that in the future, I think they're just kind of laying the groundwork for something of the future.
Sure, appreciate that. And I know we've had discussions on other of those incidents of this exact situation around the city, and maybe we need to catalog those and see what we can do to bring all of that into consistency before someone wants to do something with property and then become stymied with a public hearing process. Any questions from council? Is anyone on behalf of the applicant online?
Is the applicant here?
Yes, the applicant is here. Can you hear me?
To the applicant or the applicant's representative,
Yeah,
There he is.
Dr.
I'm
Chocolate,
here.
if you have anything to
Yes,
add,
I am
please do
here.
so.
Yeah, I'm here.
Anything to add to the presentation at
Hello,
this point?
my name is Dr. Chokolov, and I'm a general dentist who practices in Homestead, Florida.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else online or in the audience who wants to speak on this matter?
They have a presentation for
Okay,
us.
sure, we'll see the presentation.
Hello, my name is Dr. Chokolov, and I'm a general dentist who practices in Homestead, Florida. With this presentation, I would like to introduce you to BC Dental Group, which is the company that owns the real estate associated with my practice. And I would like to tell you more about the rezoning request that I have in regards to that real estate. So, as I stated before, the purpose of this presentation is to introduce you to the real estate and the location of the real estate in question, to give you a brief description of the business that is run on that real estate, and to explain you exactly why I'm seeking rezoning of that property. BC Dental Group is a limited liability corporation with headquarters in Homestead. The address is 83 Northwest A Street, Homestead, Florida, which is the exact same address as 805 Northwest 1st Avenue. It's just that the property has two different entrances, so based on the entrance you use, you can have two different mailing addresses. The property is located one block west of Chrome Avenue. It is on Campbell Drive, downtown Homestead. The only purpose of the BC Dental Group company is to own the real estate associated with my dental office. Currently, the lot has one-story building, which is occupying the west side of the lot. The building is approximately 1,700 square feet, and it has three entrances, two that are from A Street, and one entrance that is from Northwest 1st Avenue. The building is occupied by Homestead Dental, and it is functioning as a dental office. It has been functioning as a dental office since the 1960s. As I said in the previous slide, the dental office has been in existence since the 1960s, initially owned by Dr. Ryan and then Dr. Spinelli. In 2009, I acquired the building and the real estate and established Homestead Dental at this location. BC Dental Group is the owner of the real estate. The office is not very big. It has 4 dental rooms, a waiting room, front desk, obviously, a bathroom, sterilization room, a storage room, a lab, and a little break room. Currently, the office has 6 employees, including me, 2 hygienists, 2 front desk, and a dental assistant. On this slide, you can see a bird view of the property. As you can tell, the west side of the lot is occupied by the small building, and the east side is just covered by grass. There's a small parking lot in the middle. Finally, I would like to talk to you about the purpose of this rezoning request. The current zoning of the property is hotels, motels, and institutional, which is obviously not in line with the current use of the property. Why is this like this? I have no idea. All I know is that I have been grandfathered into this zoning ever since I purchased the practice, and Dr. Spinelli has also been grandfathered into this. I am not sure if the code has changed or what has happened in the past. Our request currently is to rezone the property from this hotels, motels, and institutional to a professional business restricted zoning, B1A, which specifically allows the use of the land as a dental office, as a professional institution. We seek this rezoning because the office is expanding as the population of Homestead is expanding, and the 4 rooms we have is starting to feel a little bit too small and too cramped. In order for us to better serve the community, a good idea for the future would be to expand the current building or to just build a new office. Of course, this is going to happen at a later point, and I'm not seeking any approvals for any building construction or any of that nature. I just am trying to align the current use of the building, which is dental office, to the proper zoning, so that the future expansion can be considered if such need arises.
Thank you, Dr. Chocolaw. Appreciate that.
Finally, I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to explain my request, and I hope that my request to rezone the property gets granted. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone online or in the audience wishing to speak on this matter?
Nobody online, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion for approval of first reading.
Move it.
Moved by Councilwoman Bailey,
A second.
second by Councilman Roth. If there are no final comments from council, we'll have a roll call vote.
Councilman Roth? Councilman Fletcher? Councilman Fletcher?
Yes.
Councilwoman Avila?
Yes.
Councilman Shelley?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Faircloth Staggers? Vice Mayor Faircloth Staggers?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. This will be before us on second reading in April, correct? All right. Thank you. That concludes the quasi-judicial portion of our agenda. This item is item 6. Mr. Pearl.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Tab 9 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, accepting the United States Department of Homeland Security Federal Emergency Management Agency Hazard Mitigation Grant for certain capital projects targeted at improving the resilience of the electric utility infrastructure, approving the grant agreement for the hazard mitigation electric utility infrastructure projects, authorizing the execution, implementation, and renewal of the grant agreement, establishing a budget in the amount of $2,202,267.60 for the expenditure of grant funds, and providing for an effective date.
Madam Manager, is this yours?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just by way of some background on this item, in conjunction with seeking FEMA reimbursement for Hurricane Irma, the city felt it would be prudent to apply for a hazard mitigation grant that would be used toward making the electrical infrastructure better able to withstand future hurricanes. In 2020, electric utilities applied for a FEMA disaster mitigation grant, which would assist with funding projects planned to improve the electrical system's resilience against weather-related outages. The city targeted improving the sections of town with the oldest and most vulnerable facilities. Electric Utilities has been awarded $2,202,267.60 hazard mitigation grant from Federal Emergency Management Agency for the hardening of the city's electrical infrastructure. The project will consist of replacing 1,560 existing overhead wooden poles and associated electrical infrastructure in the southwest section of the city with concrete poles and more robust hardware, greatly hardening the system against severe weather. Staff recommends that the mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement and establish a budget for a grant award of $2,202,267.60 from FEMA for the installation of resilient electrical utility infrastructure. This grant has no requirement for matching funds.
Thank you. Any initial questions or comments from council? This is tremendous. What a great step forward to avoid spending years dealing with FEMA in the future. We're going to avoid damage. And again, for the public that's watching, and I know you are, this is $2.2 million coming into the city to help harden the electrical system. Not your money, this is coming from other sources into Homestead. A major accomplishment for staff who did this, and thank you for finding that.
Thank you, Mayor.
So
I do have one comment or a couple comments. Thank you, Mayor. I see that Public Works is not, or Utilities is not here to answer any questions, but once this money comes to the city, will it be our personnel that will be implementing the changes of the poles and bringing them in and bringing them out, or is that going to go to a private contractor? The reason I ask is we've all been up here touting jobs in our community for our folks. If it does go out to bid, will we have an opportunity to look at those bids and put local contractors or local vendors, if they're not in the city of Homestead, within the vicinity of Homestead, to have the opportunity to bid on these projects? $2 million is a lot of money, and that would go a long way in helping to, bring some employment back to our area too.
Yes, understood, and we appreciate that comment. And my understanding, this will go out to bid. But Barbara is on the call if she wants to add to this.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Kate. Our plan is to use our employees. And I'm getting a lot of feedback, so I'm keeping my answer brief.
Okay, so I think what she said, that our staff and our personnel will be able to handle this exchange of the new poles with the old poles.
That's what I heard.
Okay.
Yes, that's our plan.
As long as we keep it local and they're happy with all this extra work, I'm good with it. All right, thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councilman.
Thank you, Councilman. Very good point. All right, do we have a motion for approval on this item?
I will gladly move it.
Moved by Councilwoman Bailey. Seconded
Second.
by Councilwoman Aviva. Any further questions or comments? We'll have a roll call vote on this.
Councilman Fletcher? Councilman Fletcher? Councilman Fletcher?
Yes.
Councilman Roth?
Yes.
Councilman Shelley?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes.
Councilwoman Avila?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Faircloth Staggers?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Tab 10, Madam Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an award of RFP 202116 Homestead History Experience. The RFP was issued as part of the acceptance of a $50,000 grant with no match requirement from the Florida Department of State Division of Historical Resources. The city contacted 763 vendors, 30 vendors attended the non-mandatory pre-bid meeting, and the city received 2 proposals in response to the RFP. The recommended proposer is MDSX LLC, a company based out of Orlando that has done previous similar work for locations like SeaWorld and the Kennedy Space Center. They've committed to coordinating with local historic resources to create a virtual reality experience that can last up to 10 minutes and that can be expanded in the future to include additional facets of Homestead's history. Some of the references that they will be using for this include the historic Homestead Town Hall Museum, the Museum of Florida History, archives from local news and media, Everglades Information Network and Digital Library at Florida International University Libraries, University of Florida Digital Collections, National Park Service, Everglades National Park website and visitor centers, photo collections, City of Homestead website, Homestead Then and Now, and the Florida Department of State. And each step of the way, we will have the opportunity to review and approve what they're doing, and that includes planning review, script review, content review, signage review, draft of deliverables, and final deliverables. And obviously, throughout the process, we'll keep the council apprised of every step. So staff recommends that the mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to award RFP 202116 for the development and installation of a historical exhibit at the Cybrarium to MDSX LLC, authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute an agreement in substantially the form attached for a total amount not to exceed $50,000. The project will be funded by a $50,000 grant from Florida Department of State Division of Historical Resources.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Are any initial questions or comments from council? Councilwoman?
Thank you, Mayor. I love the idea that we're doing this, and I support it. I think my only request is that whatever the final product is, that it comes back to us for review. And I would like to recommend that we bring members of the community that have been here for a while to participate on perhaps an ad hoc committee to kind of fact check and make sure that the pieces of history that may have been forgotten are included in that presentation and final product. So if we can approve that committee, I would appreciate it. I do have some recommendations, but we can all put our names in that hat too. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Bailey?
Thank you, Mayor. The only suggestion that I have is that we have the applicant consider adding a Spanish and a Creole version as well to be able to choose some different language options.
When we talk to them, we can talk about that. I mean, obviously, that may not be included in this price, but we can certainly speak to them about that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And to echo Councilwoman Avila's comments, I've had extensive conversations here and with the manager about the importance of relying upon those rapidly dwindling members of our community who have firsthand knowledge going back to, probably at this point, only back to the 1930s. It's our one chance to get it right, because once we put a factual error in, it compounds itself over and over again. And the resources that are available to put this together, really for this size community, or what it once was, are just phenomenal. And I really impressed and encouraged by the several waypoints within the contract where we're all going to have the opportunity to take a look at this, have those members of the community take a look at it, and make sure everything is as accurate as can possibly be and with clarity at every step of the way, rather than having to go back and reinvent the wheel once it's been, a final draft of production. So I think there are those safeguards built in, and certainly, the team knows, my perspective on being accurate and correct and fair and inclusive. So, thank you. Is there anything further from council? Is there anyone online wishing to speak on this matter?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this matter? All right, then I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion for approval of this item.
Mr. Mayor?
Moved by Councilman Roth.
I'm sorry, may I just read the title into the record? We skipped ahead a little bit. It's a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, authorizing the award of a contract to MDSX LLC for the Homestead History Experience pursuant to request for proposal number 2021-16 in an amount not to exceed $50,000, providing for implementation and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Pearl. All right, so council moved in correct form by Councilman Roth.
Second with
Second by
discussion.
Councilwoman Avila. All right. Yes.
So we've approved the agreement. Was there a discussion? Do we want a committee, or how are we? There was something raised, but if we want to, I wanted to get a little direction on that.
My second was with discussion.
Well, the discussion is embedded in the contract for review, but you had raised like the prospect of a committee. I don't know if that's feasible or if you just want to disseminate it to the people in the public that you want, but I think a little clarity on that point, so staff knows how to proceed with respect to the review.
Perhaps, Councilwoman, we can approve the contract and come back at future meetings and if you wish, bring a proposal forward to formalize that committee. I mean, clearly staff is aware, and they've committed to me that our community resources we're going to be called upon to at every step of the way.
What's the timeline for this project to be completed? How many months?
We have to have it finalized to the state by August 30th.
That's plenty of time. So I will proceed with presenting a formal recommendation for the committee for us to review and approve, and then we can take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you. So the August 1st is for the finished product?
Yeah, and to get it to the state by August 30th, right? By August 30th, all the paperwork would have to be into the state. So we would like to be done by August 1st.
Well, we really got 4 months.
Correct.
To put this all together, but they've got preliminary work to do to begin to gather the resources anyway before they start putting together, they call it storyboards. So,
right. I'm just not sure what it means that there'll be a committee or when that would be created and at what point they would be looking at the different steps. I'm just not quite sure because we're kind of full speed ahead on this. We'd go to the first step right away and obviously keep you apprised. And if we wanted people to be involved, we could absolutely get them involved. I'm just not sure what the process would be for a committee.
Well, my concern, we need to get this contract approved and off and running.
Okay.
And I'm personally not comfortable creating a committee on the fly tonight. I mean, it's a good idea and deserves to go forward, but I don't know that, off the cuff, we can get into the deep details of that composition.
Well, maybe what we could do, because we'll start working on it, and maybe what we could do is when the council considers who they would want on a committee, and we have a number of people, then we can just somehow bring them into the discussions as you review the respective steps.
Right, and even if it's just a list of folks that we all
We
compile.
reach out to.
That are prevailed upon to come in and take a look.
Indoor
Perhaps
that we
even
just need to be in touch with throughout.
without the formalization of a committee, but that we begin to put that group, an unofficial group together.
My suggestion is not to delay the contract, so I want us to proceed with the contract, and during the process, I'd like for there to be at least 2 opportunities for said committee to review and to give feedback before we approve the final product for submission to the state.
Okay.
And so that can happen.
I think we're all saying the same thing in different ways. So I think we have a motion and a second to approve the contract, and that's where we'll go tonight with that directive to staff to, we'll work together to bring back some form of compose a group to be involved, a community group to be involved in that. Mr. Roth?
Yeah, just for clarification, this is only for the contract. This is not how we proceed to put the exhibit together. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is the whole thing.
This is the whole thing. So you have to show them the exhibit, the artifacts, everything that's going to be contained within this exhibit?
Yes, this is.
At this moment in time, on
This
August
is the whole
31st.
project getting completed and submitting our project to the state to get the grant money by the end of August.
Gotcha. So would you have to have everything in place, the exhibit done prior to us receiving this money after we
Yes,
review-
and as I mentioned, what we're hoping to do is have everything in place by the beginning of August so that we can be sure to be on time.
Understand. Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. All right. So I think we need a roll call vote on this approval, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Shelley?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes.
Councilman Roth?
Yes.
Councilman Fletcher?
Yes.
Councilwoman Avila?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fairclough Staggers?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
All right, thank you. Next item is tab 11, car number 3105, retirement of Police Department K-9 MILO. Mr. Pro, you want to read the resolution?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Tab 11 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, declaring certain personal property owned by the City of Homestead to be surplus property and authorizing the manager to provide for the sale or disposition of such property in accordance with Section 2-440 of the City Code, providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Madam Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Detective Pascal's K-9 partner Milo has served the City of Homestead honorably for many years, but has reached an age when it is time for him to retire from service. It is the Police Department's policy to request the Council transfer the ownership of the retiring K-9 to their handlers, so that they may live out their remaining years in the comfort of the homes of the handlers and partners. Staff recommends that the Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the City Manager to transfer ownership of K-9 dog Milo to Detective Freddie Pascal, its handler, via quitclaim deed.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Nope. Is there anyone online or in the audience wishing to speak on this matter?
No one online.
No one? Okay. We'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion for approval. Moved by Councilman Roth. Second by Councilwoman Bailey. Roll call vote.
Councilwoman Avila?
Yes.
Councilman Shelley?
Yes.
Councilman Fletcher?
Yes.
Councilman Roth?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fairclough Staggers?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Just occurred to me that in far different and more normal times, we would have the officer and the dog here and thank them both for their service and honor the retirement of the dog. And, you know, we miss those things. So if you're out there watching, here's our proverbial milk bone for Officer Milo. Thank you. Thank you all. All right. Next item, tab 12, car number 3110, Florida Department of Transportation Occupant Protection Grant. Mr. Pearl?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Tab 12 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, accepting a grant award from the State of Florida Department of Transportation in order to address the high rate of automobile injuries and fatalities due to the non-use of occupant protection through enhanced law enforcement activities, approving the grant agreement, authorizing the city manager to execute the grant agreement, establishing a budget in the amount of $45,000 for the expenditure of grant funds, and providing for an effective date.
Madam Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. The Homestead Police Department applied for and has received a grant from the State of Florida Department of Transportation in order to address the high rate of automobile-related injuries and fatalities due to lack of occupant protection usage. The $45,000 grant award is for law enforcement overtime for increased traffic education and enforcement related to vehicle occupant protection. Staff recommends that the Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the City Manager to enter into an agreement and establish a budget for a grant award of $45,000 from the Florida Department of Transportation for occupant protection, education, and enforcement. This grant requires no matching funds.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Nope. All right, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone online or in the audience wishing to address this matter?
Seeing none online.
Thank you. We'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion for approval. Moved by Councilwoman Bailey, seconded by Councilman Roth. There are no final comments. We'll have a roll call vote.
Councilman Roth?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes.
Councilwoman Avila?
Yes.
Councilman Shelley?
Yes.
Councilman Fletcher?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Faircloth Staggers?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Next item is car number 3125, Office of the Attorney General Grant Amendments. Mr. Pearl?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Tab 13 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, accepting a grant award amendment from the State of Florida Office of the Attorney General in order to provide victim advocacy services to crime victims, training of victim advocates, COVID-related expenses, and approving the grant agreement, authorizing the city manager to execute the grant agreement, establish a budget in the amount of $168,502 for the expenditure of grant funds, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Madam Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Back in October 2020, a grant award was provided to the city from the State of Florida Office of the Attorney General in the amount of $140,221. This award was approved by Mayor and Council through Resolution R 2020-10-82. The grantor has provided to the city two amendments to the grant award. The first amendment is to increase the grant award by $14,525. This amendment would allow for the increase of a victim's advocate's time from a part-time position to a full-time position in SOS. The second amendment is to increase the grant award by $13,756. The second amendment would allow for additional victim advocacy training for the advocates assigned to this grant, $3,756, and an additional $10,000 to fund COVID-related expenses such as masks, gloves, and deep cleaning. With the inclusion of both amendments to the original grant award, the total award is now $168,502. This grant ends on September 30th, 2021. Staff recommends Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an amendment to the existing Attorney General VOCA grant budget, increasing it from $140,221 to $168,502 in order to increase victim advocacy training, and cover COVID-related expenses. This grant does require a $42,125.50 in matching funds, which will come from the currently funded detective.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Are there any initial questions from council?
It's a comment. Thank you, Mayor. The common denominator to these grants always seems to be the same, and that's Sandy Nanny, who writes these grants for the city when it comes to public safety, victim advocacy, and all those things. So I don't know if she's out there listening to us because we can't see who's out there watching. Thank you, Sandy, for everything you do for this city and all the monies you bring into this city. It is truly, truly appreciated. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. All right, is there anyone online or in the audience wishing to speak on this matter?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We'll close the public hearing, and I'll entertain a motion for approval of this item.
Move it.
Moved by
Second.
Councilwoman, seconded by Councilman Roth. Roll call.
Councilman Roth? Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes.
Councilman Fletcher?
Yes.
Councilman Shelley?
Yes.
Councilwoman Avila? Vice Mayor Faircloth Staggers?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Next item, car number 3106, agreement with the property appraiser for access to exempt information. Mr. Pearl?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Tab 14 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving the agreement for access to certain exempt information maintained by the Miami-Dade County Property Appraiser, providing for authorization and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Madam Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. On November 18th, 2020, Council approved Resolution 2020-11-102, authorizing the use of the uniform method of collection for the city's non-ad valorem assessment levied within the incorporated area of the city for the cost of providing stormwater services, solid waste recycling services, and hurricane recovery services. In order to utilize the uniform method of collection and obtain information from the property appraiser, the city is required to enter into an agreement to access certain exempt information maintained by the Miami-Dade County Property Appraiser. And basically, this would be information just to ensure that you have the owner, the correct owner, and you're billing the correct person. The information wouldn't be shared, it would have very limited access, and it would not obviously become a public record. It would just be for the purposes of understanding who the owner is and properly billing. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the Miami-Dade County Property Appraiser for access to certain exempt information.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? All right, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone online wishing to address this matter?
No, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this matter? So I'll close the public hearing, and I will entertain a motion for approval. Motion to approve the agreement with the property appraiser.
Move it.
Second.
Motion by, I believe, Councilwoman Bailey, second by Councilwoman Avila. Roll call vote.
Councilman Shelley?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes.
Councilman Roth? Councilman Fletcher?
Yes.
Councilwoman Avila? Vice Mayor Faircloth Staggers?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Next item, car number 3107, WITTKOP Park Booster Pump Station and Ground Storage Tank. CIP 2003 Professional Services. Mr. Pearl?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Tab 15 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, accepting proposal and approving work authorization for professional engineering services for the WITTKOP Park Booster Pump Station and Groundwater Storage Tank Project between the city and Hazen and Sawyer pursuant to continuing contract awarded under RFQ 2013-07, providing for implementation and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Madam Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City of Homestead treats and distributes potable water from wells pumped into two 500-gallon elevated water tanks located at WITTKOP and Harrisfield Park. Prior to entering the tanks, water is treated with chlorine and fluoride. Proper contact time is required in the storage tanks prior to the finished water entering the distribution system. In order to better serve the city's residents, CIP 2003 was approved to install a new 1 million-gallon ground storage tank at the WITTKOP water treatment facility. Once in service, this additional tank will allow the other tanks to go offline to conduct required maintenance operations, thus improving system redundancy and resiliency moving into the future, as well as increase the city's water storage capacity overall. Hazen and Sawyer will prepare all bid documents for both the 1 million-gallon above-ground storage tank and booster pump station, in addition to providing an assisting with as-built data collection, site work plans, specifications, permitting, and award services. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Hazen and Sawyer pursuant to RFQ 201307, professional architectural and engineering services for the preparation of bid set documents related to the 1 million gallon above-ground water storage tank and booster pump station at WITTKOP Park for a total not to exceed $189,250. This project is part of the city's capital improvement plan, CIP 2003.
Thank you. Any initial questions or comments from council? None appearing, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone online?
Seeing none?
All right, is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this matter? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion for approval of this item. Moved by Councilman Shelley,
Second.
second by Councilwoman Avila. Is there anything further from council? We'll have a roll call vote.
Councilman Shelley,
Yes.
Councilwoman Avila, Councilman Roth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey,
Yes.
Councilman Fletcher,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fairclough Staggers,
Yes.
Mayor Losner.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, next item is our number 3116, Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, Rebuild Florida Critical Facility Hardening Program. Mr. Pearl?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, tab 16 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, accepting a grant award from the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity for the Community Development Block Grant Mitigation for the WITTKOP Park Water Treatment Facility Hardening Program, authorizing the city manager to execute a grant agreement and related documents, providing for implementation, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Madam Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City of Homestead Public Works and Engineering Water Treatment Division applied for and was awarded a $1,674,000 grant from the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity for the WITTKOP Park Water Treatment Facility Hardening Program, chlorination improvements. This grant covers costs for improved security and hardening in case of emergency. The grant includes the installation of secure facilities to protect chlorine feeding systems from harm from possible attacks, weather, and unauthorized trespass. It also contemplates improvements in equipment to further protect the vicinity of the facility. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to accept a grant for $1,674,000 for the WITTKOP Park Water Treatment Facility Hardening Program from the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity and to execute an agreement once available and establish a budget. This grant requires no matching funds.
Thank you. Any initial questions or comments from council? Councilman Roth?
Thank you, Mayor. I got to give a shout out to Heather now. $1.6 million.
Amen.
Julio, you should be very proud. Heather, thank you very much. We appreciate you too.
Thank you, Councilman. All right, Councilwoman?
Ditto.
Yeah, we're really going to talk about a total of what we've approved tonight just in one fell swoop when we get through the next couple of items. All right, is there anyone online wishing to speak on this matter?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Is there anyone in the audience? No. I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion for approval.
Move it.
Moved by Councilwoman Avila. Second, Councilman Roth. Roll call.
Councilman Fletcher,
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey,
Yes.
Councilman Shelley,
Yes.
Councilman Roth, Councilwoman Avila, Vice Mayor Fairclough Staggers,
Yes.
Mayor Losner.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Next item, card number 3116. Another Florida Department of Economic Opportunity Rebuild Florida Critical Facility Hardening Program. Mr. Pearl?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, tab 17 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, accepting a grant award from the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity for the Community Development Block Grant Mitigation for the city's wastewater treatment plant backup generator, authorizing the city manager to execute a grant agreement and related documents, providing for implementation and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Pearl. Madam Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City of Homestead Public Works and Engineering Wastewater Treatment Division applied for and was awarded a $2,700,000 grant from the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity for for the wastewater treatment facility backup generator, emergency generators. This grant covers the costs associated with purchase and installation of emergency power generators at the water treatment facility. The projected work will consist of installing 3 generators that would work together to power the administration building, headworks facilities, sequence batch reactor blowers, UV disinfection system, and sludge digesters, dewatering and thickening facilities at the plant. Once installed, the generators will provide power to the entire plant during loss of power as a result of emergency events, which is a really wonderful thing. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to accept a grant for $2.7 million for the wastewater treatment facility backup generator from the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity and to execute an agreement once available and establish a budget. This grant requires no matching funds.
Thank you again. What a racking up the grant dollars tonight. Any initial other comments or questions from council? No. And again, to clarify for the public, if you didn't catch that, in the event of a power failure, particularly after a natural disaster, this will help keep the water running and your toilets flushing by providing an on-site generator for the wastewater treatment plant. That's kind of interesting that with our experience with Hurricane Andrew in the summer of 2005 that we're just now getting that. But either way, we're going to look forward and be prepared with concrete power poles and an on-site generator for the wastewater treatment plant. So we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone online?
No, Mayor.
Anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this matter? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion for approval.
Move it.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Avila, second by Councilman Shelley. Roll call vote.
Councilwoman Avila? Councilman Shelley?
Yes.
Councilman Roth?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes.
Councilman Fletcher?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fairclough Staggers?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. And for those of you who are keeping track at home, that brings us tonight of total grant monies from primarily the state of Florida of $6.57 million coming into our community for really long-term projects that, you know, they're not necessarily sexy, they're not high profile, but when you need them, they are there and will merely make a big difference to our community in the long term. So they say through all kinds of weather, right? All right. Next items for discussion, car number 3118. Madam Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Staff is seeking direction with regard to, on January 21st this year, we received a proposal from Les Jardins Community Center to operate an early learning center in buildings 200 and 400 at the old YMCA site located at Harris Field. As I say, we're just seeking from direction to see if the council would like to go forward with this suggested use. And if, in fact, the council did want to go forward with this, what we would have to do is bring back the proposal to council so you could discuss the proposal and essentially a term sheet, and then we would go back and negotiate an actual lease that would again have to come back to council for approval.
Thank you, and I'll open up the conversation to council. Councilwoman?
Thank you, Mayor. I think that as a temporary use, I'd be okay with that while we explore some other options and put the building out with an RFP to see what else we can get there for our city. I think that there's a lot more opportunity and it being prime real estate that we can explore some other options. Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman?
I would agree. I definitely see a lot of potential there. I think it's a perfect spot for quite a few things that we've talked about over the years. Maybe some type of welcome center, historical, art. So I would love to see Les Jardins there too. Very quality school, but I'm not sure if that would be something that we would consider for a long period of time. So I'd be interested in seeing what their proposal is and see what we can work out. Thank you.
Councilman Roth, anything to add? Councilman Shelley? Yes.
All right, thank you, Mayor. It's one of those things where the proposal itself, I think is good. Les Jardins has been an excellent organization in our community and provided great services to this community for a long period of time. And so I think as an organization goes, they would be a good partner. But I also think that right now we have, a unique opportunity to see what can that property be used for. I mean, it's one of the first times in a while that we haven't had a tenant there. There's an opportunity at this point to see what the market might hold. Is it educational related? Is it not-for-profit related? Is it another organization similar to, the YMCA providing community services? Is it for-profit? Is there a developer that wants to come in and turn that, kind of prime piece of property into something that could generate jobs for the community? I mean, there's a lot of things that property could potentially produce. And so I think what I'd like to do, I'd love to see some sort of an RFP process. I mean, unfortunately with COVID, now we may not get the most options on the table that we might have otherwise gotten pre-COVID. But I think it's also a time period where, it makes some sense for the next 30 days or 60 days to maybe put something out there and just test the waters, see what gets responded, see what type of proposals may come in addition to the Les Jardins one, and then we can evaluate them all at one time and figure out, is there a market out there, or as you guys are talking about, do we stay temporarily in a short-term basis? Because I guess that's my one question. I don't remember what the proposal terms were based on our conversations leading up to the COW, but what did Les Jardins, what were they asking for? Because they're going to invest a decent amount of money into the building. I assume they're going to want, a multiple-year contract with, whatever they proposed.
Well, Councilman, there was an actual proposal, but we weren't able to bring it at this point because if there is an RFP process, we wouldn't be able to speak to the terms of it. But it would be for certainly some years. It wouldn't just be for a year.
Right. That's what I was figuring, is that if we don't do some sort of an RFP, test the waters now, I mean, Les Jardins, in order for them, this proposal to probably work for them, it's going to be a multiple year, 3, 5, 10-year probably or more proposal, which isn't as much short term. I mean, when I think short term, I'm thinking, let's get through this COVID crisis, let's do it for a year, and then the market will be hotter and we can maybe get a better proposal and compare apples to apples. So I think, at this point it's open. So my hope or recommendation would be we do at least an initial RFP, with hopefully a good marketing campaign preceding the RFP, because otherwise we put it out there for 30 days, but nobody knows about it. We haven't done anything to let people know about it. We, further hinder our ability to get multiple options on the table. But that would be what I'd like to see. And then, I don't think 30 days affects the process or 60 days affects where Les Jardins may be at this point in time. And if there's nobody else out there, then we kind of know where we are and we can figure out how to adjust from there. So that's kind of my position. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Shelley. Councilman Fletcher?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I tend to agree with Councilman Shelley. However, I think that whatever we do, we need to include the property across the street as well. Over the years, we have not been good stewards of the land that we have, in some cases, just sitting vacant for a long period of time. And I believe that now's the right time to start looking for future tenants or landowners or people to come in and help develop this community. And I would be interested to see what we could do with the old City Hall site as well. Understanding that Les Jardins has been a good community partner over the years, I don't want to throw a rock at their window and say, hey, we're not really interested, but I believe we need to put this out for everyone to take a look at and provide an opportunity for them to get into the process. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to echo the sentiments of my colleagues. We all share in the agreement that Les Jardins is a phenomenal community partner in our community. I've always supported them and will continue to do so because they bring value to our community. As it relates to that site, I think we need to explore all options and not shut the door on other potential opportunities for that site. I'm not sure what the proposal entails because I haven't had the opportunity to view it, But I think we need to be forward thinking and look long term at what we would like to have at that property, what the vision is for it. So I think we're all on the same page as it relates to this agenda item. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And, obviously, I'm not privy to what extent each of my elected colleagues may be in the loop as to what conversations and talking points have been made. But one thing I want all of us to keep in mind is, as designated park, there are limited uses. It's not as if that property can be sold or go under a really long-term lease, I think without a county referendum, which would almost certainly fail. So there are some restrictions there. I toured the building with the staff. It's probably been, a couple of months ago now. And clearly, the deferred maintenance, in light of what we all now know was the financial situation at the Y, is taking its toll, and we need to recognize that every day that building sits there unoccupied, it's going to become more and more expensive to bring back up to a usable, and perhaps have other issues. I mean, the conversations I've been privy to do not entail an exclusive use to Les Jardins. There's plenty of space left to co-locate one or more additional uses. And I think we all recognize that Les Jardins is a phenomenal community partner with a stellar track record, respected throughout the industry with what they do and how they spend their money and make every nickel scream. I'm not going to announce the number, but they shared with us that they had been awarded recently well into the double-digit millions funding to expand the program. So my first concern would be, and I think there's value there in that local preference thing, that's a known and performing entity with real dollars in hand, ready to go forward. I think there is some value there. My concern would be, and I don't know that the manager can answer this, but would an RFP process perhaps chill or kill Les Jardins' interest in that site?
I'll answer as best as I can, and I want to preface what I say so that everyone on the council understands that the proposal that Les Jardins gave us is only for 2 of the buildings. It's not for the entire site. I think when some of you were speaking about an RFP, you meant for the entire site. So they want to use the sort of an outbuilding and also the right side of the main building, just those 2 portions. There's also the whole left side of the building, the gymnasium and the pool, which staff has been working on a plan to try and renovate that enough so that we could have programs there, at least temporarily, while perhaps the council considers something for the whole site. So to answer your question, I do not know if that would have a chilling effect on Les Jardins. I know that for the purposes of those 2 buildings, they were conceptualizing being able to do that very quickly, because they could be up and running probably in 45 to 60 days, because there's not as many improvements that are needed there that are needed in the rest of the building, which we're working on and looking at. So I can't answer that question. I don't know if it'll have a chilling effect. I think that if we put an RFP out or some type of solicitation for those 2 buildings that they're interested in right now, for, as the councilwoman, I think, suggested, maybe a shorter term, then we can see who might be interested. And I also don't know what would be the shortest term anyone would consider for those 2 buildings.
Right, and that is a very important distinction or point that you made and brought forward, is it is really limited to a portion of the building we commonly refer to as the YMCA. We're not talking about the balance of Harris Field or any other, and it's, as you said, 2 of the pods within that Y complex. So with that, I guess, the manager's looking for some direction. Are we going to just throw it out on the streets for the whole Y complex, or limited to those 2 buildings? Because as I understand it, staff's been looking at that this would provide us with cash flow immediately to begin to do programs in the balance of that property that we control, pending perhaps somebody else coming in and doing something there. Councilman Roth?
Thank you, Mayor. That was what my understanding was, Kate, that it's the total building is about 55,000 square feet.
Councilman, I don't have those numbers in front of me. Pedro's on the line. I don't know if you have them, Pedro. But the gymnasium, as well as the left side of that building, and the pool area, is much bigger than those 2 pieces.
Right,
that
that's
they're
what
interested
I was getting to. I think that their side was like between 10 and 15,000 would be their portion of the property that they were awarded, to go in there. And then the rest of it would be not only the gymnasium, but all the workout rooms, the locker rooms,
Exactly. Yes.
The pool area. The Y occupied a tremendous amount of that space in there. And all along, while the Y was there was a separate entity that was operating a daycare, childcare, early development center, similar to what Jardin wants to do as well. So I think we have to answer a few questions. One is, as the mayor brought up, are there any long-term issues legally that if we do an RFP that we can't tie that property up because of specific designations, title, how we got that land? Is it got a special purpose that it's supposed to be used only for recreational purposes, things like that? Because that apparently that land was deeded to the city by somebody, so there's got to be something in title somewhere that may state all of that, or there may not be any restrictions at all on it, so we don't know that part at this point. And then, do we want to create a cash flow situation with those 2 buildings with a tenant, whether it be Jardin or someone else, and continue to use that as a city park, city recreational area, and city outreach programs? We got to figure that part out too. So, I'm okay with talking with Jardin and getting what their proposals may be for that location, and reserving the rest of the space, if council is willing to do so, for a future RFP on that, so we can at least move forward and get some cash flow going with a community partner that's been in this community, that's committed to this community, and has showed a very good interest in what we've got there. For traffic and all those different things that may occur, they've got the entrance site right there, they got the circular driveways there, so it all works for what they need. So I guess there is some clarification. I'm throwing a lot of stuff out there because the mind works how the mind works. And hopefully somebody can put it all together for me and we can figure out which is going to come first. Do we need to know about the restrictions, if there are any deed restrictions or anything on long-term RFPs and agreements? I don't know that there would be, because the Y had a very long-term lease with us at one point. And then, are we okay with leasing out the 2 buildings or to anyone, whether it be Jardin or somebody else, or do you want to do an RFP just for that, and maintaining the rest of the Y property for city use, knowing that we've got someone there that's contributing dollars to help support that building? So I threw a lot out there, so I'm glad we're having this discussion because I think it's important.
And my personal preference would be to go down that road to continue to negotiate with Jardin for that limited, for that use. And we know that their type of use is a permitted use. And we understand that it is limited in scope, which leaves the balance of the Y complex on the table for another day when we have a better understanding as to what all of those implications are. But for me, and perhaps maybe I've got more information some of you all do, I was fortunate to sit in some meetings with them. I'm optimistic that this is a springboard from which a lot of good things can happen in that building on a wide variety of issues. The arts, the, fitness, whether some sort of city use, but from my understanding and discussions, this gives us that financial ability to be creative with the balance of the building. So I'd like to see us go forward with negotiating with Les Jardins, bring back a formal proposal for that limited portion of the building.
There's a couple of things I'd also like to make clear to the council. Some time ago, we had received a CDBG grant for the locker rooms at the Y building. And we're in the process now of trying to spend that money because there's a time frame within which we have to spend it. And that's why what we were trying to do is get a sense of how much it would be to renovate that area or have new facilities there so that they were something that the city could use for city programs. So that's one piece of it. And the other piece of it is that because it is the two buildings, and we've had these discussions with Matt, and the city's not putting any money into this transaction, the city would be permitted to enter into a lease agreement with Les Jardins or with anyone for those two buildings. So just from a procedural point of view, we really want to use that money wisely and get it used and hopefully be able to program the other parts of the building and at the same time just understand what you would like us to do with either the whole site or those two buildings.
Well, what I sense or where I think we probably should go is to bifurcate the project. And again, to go forward with the Les Jardins proposal, leaving open for future discussion the balance of the building. So I guess the direction tonight then that I would like to see us give you is to go forward with Les Jardins on those two buildings alone. And the rest of it is up to the creativity of council and staff in the future.
If I may, Mayor. Yeah, and I'm okay with that too. But if we're going to, I think if we're going to keep that building as a city recreational area, and how much is the grant money that you need to spend for the locker rooms?
$175,000.
Does it have to be used in the locker rooms? Because what I'm thinking is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It was, Pedro, can you answer that question since your recent discussions with them?
So my recent discussions with Calvin is that we don't want to, because the scope of what we applied for was the locker rooms, and the time limit is approaching very closely, he recommended that we don't steer away from that scope. So that's why we're really targeting right now what we're trying to spend it on is in the locker room area.
So what I get is it was awarded for the locker rooms and we need to stay the course.
Yes.
So, okay, so it's $175,000. That's quite a bit of money for locker rooms.
But it's probably not enough for whatever.
Well, I understand that. So, I mean, what I'm thinking is, can that be used to air condition the locker rooms? Can it be used to do something so that if we change the makeup of that area in the future, if we want to add an art section to that building, if we want to add something to it, we haven't totally reconfigured the locker room with this money. We put an infrastructure in so that we can at least enhance the locker room for now. I mean, that locker room has plumbing through all out of it. It's got floor drains everywhere. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that, has to be done in there if we're going to keep it and maintain it as a full-blown locker room. And I think there's two locker rooms. You got a male side and a female side, so you have two locker rooms to deal with it as well. So I'm just trying to think, if you've got $175,000 now that have to be used in a locker room, can we do it for some sort of infrastructure, whether air conditioning or something that goes into the space that it lacks already, which would be an improvement to the locker room, and then we can decide together, if this whole thing works out, how do we want that Y or that building to be reconfigured for city use, because there's other activities we want besides the physical aspect of it. There's cultural things, and there's all kinds of things. There's a lot of space in there that we can utilize. So I get you got to use that money, but let's think about how we're using it so that we don't spend it on something we're not going to need in the future in that same area.
Understood, Councilman. In many respects, we're thinking in the same vein because the first thing we looked at was the AC system because those locker rooms didn't have air conditioning. And frankly, the 2 locker rooms don't make sense in terms of any facility because it's the old-fashioned. You don't need all that space.
Right.
What we would want to do is have 1 locker room and just repurpose the locker room as part of the improvements to the whole locker room area. That's kind of what we're looking at. And as I say, that did include consideration for the AC unit. We've been trying to revamp old plans and get a sense of what's there. We just don't have all of the numbers yet and all of the figures yet. But the idea is to have something there eventually that would be amenable for other uses.
Right. The building has great bones as it sits. It's deteriorated over the period of time because it wasn't really taken care of very well. But I think we have a great opportunity to, one, create cash flow on that site with a proposal from whether it be Les Jardins or someone else, and maintaining that building as something that the city can improve and then use as a major asset. I mean, that's the center pretty much of the city, east-west. And, then the next project is, I think Councilman Fletcher brought it up, is the City Hall property too. It's been sitting there dormant for many years. So, but let's get through this one first. And I agree with the mayor as far as let's work with Les Jardins, see if we can put together a proposal for that, create that cash flow scenario, and then possibly work in the future to maintain that property as a city asset and a recreational facility, cultural center, all kinds of different things that we can. You guys are great with coming up with ideas, so I'm sure you'll come up with something fantastic, similar to what we're seeing tomorrow at the Cybrarium. So
yeah,
we
want to come up with ideas and money as well. So.
Okay.
Councilwoman.
Mayor, if I may.
All right, go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Yes, I think it's very important when we're having these conversations, in order to have an intelligent and informed conversation, we need to have all the details, and we don't have all the details or haven't been privy to all of the details relative to the proposal from Les Jardins. Like, what is their long-term plan? How many student stations are they, what they like to start off with? Do they anticipate expanding? Right now, they are interested in 2 spaces. What are they forecasting for the future? I know they always have a waiting list. Will they increase student stations? So we're here to have a discussion, but we don't know what the proposal is. And we're you're gleaning some information now based on those of my colleagues that have had those conversations. But moving forward, we need the information in order to determine our next steps. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilwoman.
Thank you, Mayor. Allow me to rephrase my suggestion, because when I said temporary, I think in my mind I was reflecting back to when we had the YMCA seeking additional time there. If we could get a proposal to evaluate that included an out clause where we were able to keep Les Jardins as part of a project through the RFP process, or that the prospective bidder had the opportunity to buy them out, it kind of gives us the best of both worlds, where we can explore both, obtain them as a tenant, offer the tenant as a something to sweeten the pie with when we put it out for RFP. I would be able to support that type of proposal. I think Les Jardins is valuable to the community. They employ a lot of people. They bring jobs, and it's one of those value added, especially for that particular area. But I just don't want to tie our hands with keeping them as a permanent multi-year lease when we haven't even explored the other options yet. So I would like to see a proposal come back with a little bit of flexibility for us to consider. And then the CBDG funds, are we able to include that as part of the proposal for RFP?
As part of our proposal, what?
Well, are we able to not include that as a potential pot of money to use towards building out or contributing towards the project that comes back through the RFP process?
We would be able to use that money for the locker room, in the locker room area, but our challenge with using that money is we have to use it by September 30th.
September 30th, okay. So depends how fast things come back and how fast we put the RFP out, right? So I think if we could agree to review proposals, I'd be able to support doing so as long as those proposals include the flexibility for us to still go out to RFP, retain them as a tenant, but still have a built-in buyout clause. Thank you.
Okay, so Councilman Shelley?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I think my purpose of the RFP was, at this point in time, we potentially have a blank slate that we could work with, and we can see what kind of exists. I think if we did the RFP, I think it's only successful if you do the entire property. Otherwise, what you're doing is you're further limiting the potential bidders who would come in and make a proposal, because you're starting to limit their footprint, what they can do with it. So I think ultimately, if the determination is that we want to parcel out those two existing buildings proposals, because I wouldn't want to put that out to RFP. I think that Les Jardins would be a great partner, assuming their proposal comes in. I think the Vice Mayor makes a great point, which is we're all kind of talking theoretical right now, because I don't know that we even know what the proposal on the table is by Les Jardins, and so we're not exactly sure, is it a good deal? Is there money that's going to flow into us that'll allow us to maybe further improve the building, which would then make it more valuable, at the end of the terms? Those are all things that we don't know. But I do think that if we're going to RFP it, it should be the entire property. If we're going to parcel it out, I think RFP becomes less advantageous. It becomes less appetizing, because I don't think we're going to get anything new or unique. And the other thing, too, there's a lot of discussion by my colleagues up here about future uses, and so it seems like there's this idea to continue to utilize it almost as in the same way which the YMCA was originally proposing. And so again, if we end up going down that route, because again, we're going to spend money potentially to improve a locker room, so I assume that means that we're going to still utilize it for some sort of physical sports activities. Otherwise, we're putting $175,000 into a building that ultimately someone else may come in and decide should be something completely unrelated to athletics or sports, or not even a locker room. So I think those are kind of the things that we need to have the discussion on, because if we're all focused on kind of maintaining the existing uses, then I do think an RFP becomes less advantageous, because I don't think we're going to get, we're not going to accomplish anything. In that case, then maybe we should continue to go forward, get the proposal from Les Jardins, and then ultimately evaluate that, and then determine based on that proposal what we go from there. Is there cash flow, et cetera? So that kind of as I'm listening to everybody speak. Thank you, Mayor.
And Mayor, if I may, as a point of clarification to Councilman Shelley and the Vice Mayor's point with regard to not having the facts, our challenge was that if you were going to put out a solicitation for just those two buildings, it would have been inappropriate to reveal the terms suggested, because then other proposers would see what they had proposed. So the question in the car is, if there is consideration for that use, then they can come back and be very open about what the terms are, because you're not going to RFP those two buildings.
I just want to put out a reminder. I don't know who was here back when all this happened, but when we had another valuable piece of property go out to bid, and it created a tremendous problem, and that was at the old sports complex. And that's why I like staying local. I know the people we're dealing with. Les Jardins has been in this community a long time. The rest of the building, I understand. We could do the RFP for that if that's what council wants to do, but I don't want to see us get into another situation 5, 6, 10 years down the line like we had with, what was the name of that company that was out there at the sports complex? What was it? LA Sports, La Sports? Lale? And that went on for years, and we got tied up and we couldn't do nothing, and I just don't want to see that happen here with this piece. We have an opportunity to entertain some proposals. I'm okay with the Les Jardins part. If you want to put an RFP out for the rest of the building, I'm okay with that, but I just have a feeling that you're going to get a lot of tire kickers coming in through here. A lot of promises are going to be made, and hardly any are going to be kept. And at least we know what Les Jardins is capable of doing, and we know what our city staff and our city resources are capable of doing if we decide as a council to allow that to happen. yeah, I'm the first one that wants to look and see what's out there. We have 25 acres across the street that we can do that with, but I don't think the YMCA building is the one we experiment with. If we want to put in a huge RFP out there, let them talk to us about the city hall property, and let's look at that one too. I think this project is small enough, it's going to add some revenue to sustain and support that building as well. So I had to bring up the baseball stadium just because I lived through it, and I watched people get hurt by that. And, you know, no matter what a person says on paper prior to them signing a deal, they have to have the ability to execute throughout the process. And I know Les Jardins will be able to do that on those two buildings. Will somebody else be able to do it if we pull Les Jardins and give them the entire building? I don't know that they can do that. So that's just my thoughts, my 2 cents worth. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman.
Mayor, if I may, the $175,000 is not going to cover all the costs for the other side of the building. I wish I knew now, but we do not yet know what that estimate's going to be. So that would be something that we would obviously bring back to you when we have a better sense of that.
Oh, let me just express my sense of frustration for a moment. Based on the tone and tenor of the conversation from my elected colleagues, it seems that for whatever reason, you've not been briefed on any specifics as to what the conversation has been to date. And I feel as though that had you been briefed, maybe we would be more cohesive in going toward this relatively short-term proposal and what the staff's thought process and vision is for the balance of the Y property, rather than being out here in almost 7 different directions at this point. I just wanted to say that, and I see some body language, at least from a couple of you, that indicate that I might be right, that there's really not, there's very little information in your brains coming into this discussion as to what the talking points have been. And, you know, I've got the benefit sitting here tonight of knowing what those talking points have been, and I think they can withstand scrutiny, and probably when they see the light of day, address some of the many concerns you have had. Now, as for the balance of the building, Mr. Roth, you're right. You know, in some respects, that is a public park. That is public use. And that's not something where we're going to put out for RFP for an unlimited scope of give us your best idea. Maybe across the street at the old City Hall site? Absolutely. That is appropriate. But we have a very narrow, almost, well, not single use, but very limited use building. And I feel it's my feeling that if we gave the manager direction to come back with a formal proposal from Les Jardins, that much of your concerns would be addressed. They've got a lot of money in their hand that they've either got to spend with us or they're going to go down the street and buy something else. And I think what they're talking about doing with our building, there are precious few others that have that desire, ability, or vision to do. So in that regard, I would, you know, it's not going to hurt to get something formal in front of us, and if it doesn't fly, it doesn't fly. But I think to go out to a full RFP, you know, if it takes Les Jardins 60 days to get the building cleaned up and prepared, now we're talking, if they were the successful proposer, 120 more days. So now we're into the next school year already. Trust me when I say they are ready to go. They are ready to add, and I may be misquoting here, but something tells me, and to the Vice Mayor's point, They were going to add something like 150 new student stations at that facility if they become successful in their negotiations with us. So, we're not moving kids around, we're adding kids and creating cash flow to the city to be as creative as we need to be for the balance of the building, whether it be facilities run by the city or that we engage a concessionaire to implement our vision there. So I would just ask for you all to consider authorizing the manager to bring back a formal proposal from Leigh Hardin. Yes, Councilwoman.
I'm happy to defer this item till next time, and let's see the proposal, and we'll make our decision then. I mean, I think that's the simplest approach right now. I want to see a proposal. I just don't know what's going to be in it to be able to decide if I'm going to approve it or not. So,
we always have multiple opportunities to say no in the future, but we need to get off go. We've got an empty building and an empty, whether it's 18 or 25 acres across the street, that people are asking, what's going on? We've got, and I hesitate to call Harris Field prime property because that's not something we're going to sell or give away. That's ours. That belongs to the public. That is parkland. So, I even hate to refer to that as prime property. So, Council?
do you need a motion or just general?
Mr. Mayor.
I think Mr. Fletcher and maybe even the Vice Mayor wanted to chime in again. Go ahead, Councilman Fletcher.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make the point that when I brought up the old City Hall site, it's just been sitting there vacant for such a long period of time that it's time we start to move forward and make this city better than it has been in the past. After hearing everybody's thoughts, I'm leaning more towards, let's hear what the proposal has. Let's see what Leigh Hardin has to offer the city. I think we have a golden opportunity here to really come back and bring those buildings back to the standards for occupation. Here in the near term, within the next couple of years, and still having a joint use potential between, if it is Leigh Hardin who we go with or whomever. I'm just, it's sad every time you drive by there and you see the gate, that goes to the US 1 closed. You see that parking lot empty. This is a facility that for years, supported our community, and it's time we get that back and start supporting our community. So with that, I'm leaning towards, let's hear the proposal from Leigh Hardin and let's come up with a plan. And I think that we ask for all the advice from our communities and our constituents to throw us in some ideas, because we haven't been doing a good job at coming up with new ideas for this property. Let's move forward with a Leigh Hardin proposal and see what it has to offer us and get some cash flow rolling. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Vice Mayor, were you trying to weigh in again? I think I heard you a moment ago.
No, I wasn't, but since you invited me, I will. I just have some questions. Is there a particular time frame for this? Because I would really like to see what the proposal would be before we move forward. So I'm just wondering, is there a timeline, a specific time frame that this has to be approved by? We can just slow this down a bit to allow us to look at the proposal and then determine whether we move forward. I think it's clear that all of us support Leigh Hardin. I haven't heard anyone that doesn't support Leigh Hardin. It's just that all of us, may have some information, may not have the information. We kind of want to have a clear understanding of what the proposal entails. So if we can have a look at that, and then we reconvene to determine if we move forward.
Right, Vice Mayor, and I think that's where my mind is tonight we would simply authorize the manager to go forward to negotiate, for lack of a better word, the proposal from Leigh Hardin to bring back to us for further review and approval at some point in the future.
Mayor.
Councilman Roth?
Thank you. Yeah, that was going to be my suggestion, and I'm not sure if you can, during this process of negotiations with Les Jardins, I'm assuming they've sent you a proposal, which is just basically the first offer. This is what we would like to see. And I don't know if you can share that with us after this meeting through whatever you share it through, so we can all look at it, and then we can make our comments back to you privately, because we can't do this in another group session unless we convene a special call. And I don't know that this warrants a special call meeting, but at least if we know what the proposal from Les Jardins is, each of us individually, we can give you our thoughts and our comments so you know where you stand negotiating with them as far as that goes. So, and that may help the process. So when you get what you think is the best offer from them, bring it to us at the next COW or the next council meeting. And if there's something we want to debate with them at that point, they will be present, and then we can hash out whatever the final details will be, if that's the will of this council. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman. And just to remind the council that we weren't keeping the facts from you. We just weren't legally able to share them. But to your question, Vice Mayor, in terms of Les Jardins, they'd like to start right away. And what we can do is certainly speak to you individually, Councilman, about that. And absolutely, I'm sure Les Jardins would be very happy to see this brought to the COW so they could speak to it themselves. And in the meantime, we could try to expedite it by just doing exactly what you suggested.
Right.
Wait, let me just chime in here for a second. I didn't, my comments weren't leaning toward negotiating at this point. I want to be privy of the information that you have, and I understand that you can't share it publicly, but I need to know the information that you have so we can hold this. As Councilman Avila referenced, if we can defer this so that we can have more conversation to determine if we would like to move forward with negotiations. I just wanted to clarify my position. It's not to negotiate right now. We can defer this potentially, get more information from you, the preliminary information that you have, and then determine whether or not we as a body would like to negotiate. So that's where I am at this point. And I'm ready to move forward with a vote or a deferment if necessary.
And just so I understand, Vice Mayor, I think that we are saying the same thing. I'm not suggesting that we go into negotiations. I'm suggesting that we're able to speak to you individually and then potentially bring this back for a further discussion at a COW, if that's the will of the council.
Got it. I would like to see the proposal.
Councilman, did you have something?
I don't think I can make it any clearer at this point that we will get the proposal that has been submitted, however you guys disseminate it to us. We will have the ability to comment on this proposal, and then you will probably be crafting an agreement to bring forward that we'll either talk about at the COW or the next council, preferably the COW, because we have more time to discuss this. And then we'll be able to see if we're going to move forward. At that point, we can kill it then, but you'll have some of the bullet points from each of the council members' concerns, whether it be whatever, triple net, who's in charge of maintenance,
She
who's
has
going
it
to paint
from
the
tonight.
building.
She's got bullet points from tonight.
Yeah. So I hope that makes it clear. And then if we were to craft a motion, it would be to do that at this point and put the rest of it on hold. Put the rest of the building on hold.
Yeah, I think what you and I are looking for, and just for clarity to our colleagues, is whether it need to be by vote or just a voice consensus to authorize the manager to go forward with Les Jardins with the goal of bringing something back to us at some point in the future in a public forum. And that certainly does not preclude private conversations between now and then. So I guess I would look to Mr. Pearl for advice Do you just need some consensus, or do we need a formal motion?
I mean, we don't need a formal motion. I think Kate has taken your direction. I think the consensus is we'll move forward. The details will be disseminated amongst you, and the proposal will be placed on preferably the cow, I think is the consensus. And you guys can have an open discussion about what that is and any changes you'd like to see. Give us direction if you want to proceed with a formal agreement and what the terms of that agreement, what you'd like to see that look like. And we can take it from there.
Thank you. Okay, so the three of you to my right and myself, are we okay with that? Mr. Shelley, do you want to register opposition, or are you good with that at this point?
No, I'm okay. I just want to see the proposal, and then we can figure out what the terms are. Yeah, that'd be helpful.
All right, thank you. Vice Mayor, are you okay with what was just stated, or do you want to register your opposition to that?
My position, I'm with Shelley. I would like to see the proposal.
Thank you. Councilman Fletcher, are you okay with going forward as we just discussed?
Yes, sir. I'm good to go.
Thank you. Just for pure transparency, I want to ask, is there anyone online or anyone in the audience who would like to make a brief comment on this issue? We're not obligated to take that, but I think that if we're going to undertake the monumental step of dealing with public property, we owe that to the people. You know the drill. Give us your name and address for the record and keep it to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, address 2231 Southeast 1st Street. It's Brandy Ramirez. Thank you for allowing me to address the mayor and council today. Good evening, everyone. Just want to remind you guys, this is why our community and residents get frustrated. Our city is heard to be, oh, they don't allow businesses to come in. They delay the process. Old City Hall has been empty for a long time. YMCA is now empty. Tonight, I want to thank Shelley and Mr. Roth. You guys are speaking for the community and the people. There is no reason to delay. Information's there. JARDIN is an outstanding agency. You got essential workers needing daycare. We're in a pandemic. Our city should have funds. And I think tonight you guys should move that forward. You still are giving the right to receive your proposal, to review, to make a final decision. It still comes back. But how do you know JARDIN doesn't walk away? That's what our city keeps being told and out there in the atmosphere. It's an empty building. There's enough space. Mr. Roth had a great idea. I hope you guys get on board with it. I hope you guys move forward. Our city deserves to move forward during a pandemic. So besides that, on a different note, Women's Clubs of Homestead is going to be having their annual fundraiser. We all know during a pandemic they're needing support for their scholarships. I hope you guys will attend. You'll definitely be getting invites. Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you. If there's nothing further, I'll close the public comment portion. So I think, Madam Manager, you have a pretty good understanding of how council would like you to proceed at this point.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay. All right. We come to that point of the agenda where I now open the floor for other public comments. Each individual will have up to 3 minutes to speak. If you wish to speak, first we will look to see if there's anyone online who wishes to make a general comment.
Mayor, we have Consulate General of Mexico in Miami, Consul Socorro Ivan.
Thank you. Welcome. Please give us your name and address for the record, and I do believe we have correspondence from you in front of us.
Yes, thank you. First off, good evening, Mayor Lawson and esteemed council members. My name is Ivan Venegas, and I work with the Consulate General of Mexico in Miami. The address is 1399 Southwest 1st Avenue, Miami, Florida, 33130. Well, we would be there in person with you, but being of the time and the direction, we are pleasure to have you here, to be here in virtual. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes. I can go forward with public comment. I'm sorry. not sure if I was supposed to comment that right now.
Did that conclude your comments, sir? We have your correspondence before us. Certainly, under this portion of the agenda, we can't take specific action tonight, but we do have your request.
Yeah, so we've currently submitted for review a letter of request for a waiver of usage fees for any space available needed for our proposed event, which is a Children's Day Fair in Homestead. We provided with you guys a community event proposal, which basically states that we're bringing forth a free and public engagement in benefit of the community of Homestead. We're collaborating with nonprofit organizations in order to accommodate those in need with free health, educational, financial, and recreational services and amenities in order to promote and endorse wellness for all families of the locality. It's a collaborative process, and we're working alongside organizations such as the University of Miami, Anti-Defamation League, the Foreign Mexican Institute, and others. We'll be providing prospectively a mobile pediatric unit, various health and educational workshops, as well as food and toy distribution for kids. So yeah, we're very eager and willing to cooperate alongside with the city of Homestead if possible in supporting these families. And we just kindly ask for this request to be taken into consideration amongst you all. Thank you so much.
Madam Manager, sir, in the letter you talked just in general terms of a public park. We don't have a specific site before us. Is that correct?
Yeah, I had initially sent this request to, I believe, Councilman Roth, just to follow the proper channel of whatever is available in consideration of this event and the amount of people that we prospectively see attending. So it's just mostly whatever is available and up to your consideration possible.
I mean, there's no process by which we can take action on this request tonight. Is that correct?
No, I don't believe so. I think there's a council meeting before the requested date, though, wherein you could take, but obviously we'd have to know where and
Mayor.
have some detail.
Councilman Roth?
If I may.
Thank you.
I was actually going to bring this up during my business, and got word that they were going to come during public comment to pitch their thing. I think they are in communication with Park and Rec right now. The original location they wanted was the east side of Harris Field, the soccer fields, that open space to do something there, and that wasn't available. And I think, Pedro, maybe if you're on there, you can correct me. You may have had some discussions with them and moved the location to Roscoe Warren's open field there so they could entertain that event. And the gist of this was they wanted a waiver of fees. We don't know what the waiver of fees are, and it's been customary up here that we don't waive fees, that each of us would reach into our PR accounts and cover the expense if council was amenable to doing that. It would be whatever park they choose. We don't know what the fees would be at this point because I don't think that they've made arrangements. Pedro, can you let me know if they've communicated with you and you guys have come up with a location for them?
I've only received communication from Michelle. We might have the Harris Field available. We've notified a company that's interested in having a flag football tournament that our staff has been dealing with to let us know by the end of the week if they are or not going to have the tournament on that day. So if they turn the day down, then we'll have Harris Field available.
So maybe you can get in touch with Socorro here, and you guys can work out the logistic details of the event. I think the city manager's office needs to be included in those conversations for the legal purposes of COVID and those things. I think we've got through some of those hurdles. And then we have time to waive fees if we need to, or ask council to do that at the Cal meeting coming up, because their event is at the latter part of, and either way, I'll cover those fees if council isn't agreeable to do that. So we don't have to worry about the money at this point. The Mexican council can do what they've got to do and prepare this event. I know it's short term, but what they're bringing to the community is the outreach that we're missing right now as well. I mean, a lot of places are doing these things, but They're doing it. It's open to the public. It's free to the public. They anticipate about 400 participants. It's mainly going to be local to the city of Homestead residents. So if, Pedro, you can work this out. Michelle may have his contact information, and then you guys can work out the logistics, and we'll take care of everything we can. I appreciate it, Mayor. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, I'm connected with Michelle, and I'd gladly love to connect with you, Pedro, to get this forward. Thank you so much, Councilman Ra.
Thank you.
I'll be
Thank you
reaching
for
out to you
coming out
tomorrow.
tonight. All right.
Thank
Is there anyone else online?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. Eddie.
Hi.
Eddie Baronis.
Sure.
Uh-oh. Big guns out.
Go ahead, Mr. Baronis. Former Councilman Baronis.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to share some good news with you guys. We received a notice of award yesterday, and our press release actually is hot off the press. It goes out. It went out today. Just to let you know that we've received $31.5 million grant to expand our program to serve 304 infant, toddlers, and pregnant women, and that's expansion slots, and from the Office of Head Start, Department of Health and Human Service. So I just wanted to share that with you guys, as you guys kind of know that we are an economic engine in the community. This new grant brings 125 new jobs from the educational level, teacher level, all the way up to the management level. So we're adding a total of 125 new jobs to Homestead and Florida City area. That brings us up to a total of 550 employees that we will grow to. So I just wanted to share that with you. We forwarded the press release this late this afternoon, so we wanted to just share with you that. I just wanted to come on council and share it, formally with you guys. It's great news. Again, as I said, it's $1.5 million additional dollars that's coming into this community. We're expanding with 304 infant, toddlers, and pregnant women, providing educational and comprehensive services, and creating 125 new jobs. So I just wanted to share that good news with you guys. Thank you.
That's tremendous. Congratulations. What an accomplishment for our community that you've privately done that. It makes our $6.5 million that we've approved tonight look like peanuts. Come on, Eddie. Don't rain on our parade here tonight.
I didn't mean to do that, but I just had to give you the good news.
Well, that is good. That is good news. Thank you. Look forward to a long and prosperous relationship between your organization and the city. Thanks again. All right.
Okay.
Do we have anyone else?
Thank you, Council.
No, Mr. Mayor.
Is there anyone in the council chambers wishing to speak publicly tonight? Thank you.
Hi, this is Janelle Picard. I was on earlier when we discussed the award of the Cybrarium exhibit that we're going to be working on. My husband and I are owners of MDSX, and I just wanted to express how excited we are to start on the project, and that I heard all the comments regarding input from the community. We're very excited to get started on that, and as well as the update to the schedule, which we'll be happy to work within. So thank you very much. We're very excited to get started.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Elvis Maldonado, 1412 Southeast 23rd Drive, Homestead, Florida. Just a quick comment. I moved over to Keys Landing. Obviously, I'm on the last road, 344th Street. I'm sure we all are aware of the amount of trucks that are constantly driving on that street. I never really drove down that road before, obviously when I lived in District 5. But now you could definitely see the impact on the road that those heavy trucks are doing. My question is, through the mayor to staff, to figure out, how do we get the county to continue to repair or mitigate that road that is constantly being destroyed? And on top of that, we also know that we have a lot of issues with the ATVs and they're constantly driving. I literally, my backyard backs that road, and every day, especially throughout the night, on the weekends, I mean, we're hearing those ATCs and four-wheelers just tearing up out there and racing. And so I have some concerns out there. First, for the impact of the road. Second, for all the ATVs that are out there. I know it's Homestead. I grew up here. I know it's part of our community, but it definitely impacts us in a negative way, those that live off of 344th Street. And there's been some safety issues there. Just recently, some accidents that are happening in there. So just wanted to bring this to your attention, and if you guys could look into it, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess, Madam Manager, with respect to the ATVs, I know we've had discussion in the past, and if you could speak with the police department about perhaps doing some enforcement that might suppress that for a while.
And actually, Mayor, I recently sent the council a summary of some of the intervention that they've been doing with that I guess it didn't put a stop to it, but I know that this is something that they've done. They've been very aggressive with it, working directly with the county as well. So I'm not sure if they're on to comment on that, but that is something they are working on.
Absolutely. Councilman?
Thank you, Mayor. Julio, we spoke about this before, and you say the county has a timeline to when some of those repairs will get done. I mean, it's absolutely embarrassing that we host a NASCAR race here, and people have to drive down that road on 137 Avenue entering the racetrack. So that portion and the portion east of 162 all the way out to 137 have to be addressed, because it's ridiculous. If you can get us a time frame, if you need us collectively to start sending emails to the county commissioner, the county mayor, who we know very well, and if you would provide us email information on who's responsible to make those decisions on timelines on when these roads get corrected, be happy to have those. Thank you, Julio.
Thank you. Just a note, a couple of weeks ago, I was out at our fill pit with some of staff, and it was like the proverbial anthill. As fast as those dump trucks could come in and get loaded and pull out and come back, they were there. And, you know, unfortunately, as long as that's happening, the road is going to continue to deteriorate. I mean, I think we're seeing the light at the end of that tunnel, that it doesn't take a lot of time to build the last 2,000 houses out there. But that is one huge issue. I was really taken aback by just the constant stream of dump trucks going in and out of that fill pit that are directly impacting Palm Drive.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, a lot of issues there,
Mr.
but
Mayor?
we are seeing a lot of light at the end of the tunnel.
That was Fletcher.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Councilman Fletcher.
Yes, if I could ask the city manager and her staff to comment. I've actually been dealing with them for many months on attempting to get Palm Drive resurfaced. We've filled many potholes on several occasions. If we could get an update on where we stand with the county. I know we were talking about that process, as well as some of the other things that I identified to you yesterday in regards to the public safety element of Palm Drive alone. You know, there's a certain section of lights that are out from 162 to 167 Avenue. There's some more lights out in front of the Center Gate Village that I know aren't on a city street, but if we have any information as to who's responsible for getting those lights repaired, because again, that is a tremendous public safety concern with as dark as those roads are, and we need to make sure that we're looking out for the community. Are there any updates in regards to the county and the paving of Palm Drive or resurfacing of certain areas?
Mayor, Council, this is Julio. We have been in contact with the county on several occasions regarding Palm Drive. Originally, they had said that project was scheduled to be repaved, basically the whole roadway to be repaved next fiscal year. But through our conversations with them, they're moving it up to this year. So we're hoping that by the end of this fiscal year, they will have that road repaved and restriped and repaved. And also 137th Avenue is another one that they're doing the same on. So we did our part of 137th already, so now it's up to the county to do their portion of it.
Councilman?
So thank you for that. Do we have any updates on I know we talked about the street lights from 344, on 344 from 167 to 162, and we had had some power issues that we've restored the power, but yet somebody hasn't hooked the lights back up. Does anybody have an update on that, please?
On that, I would have to get with the electric department for that. I understand that those lights are outside of our distribution area when it comes to lighting, but I'll get with them and I'll give you an update on that once I receive it.
Thank you, Julio.
Councilman?
Thank you. Julio, real quick before you go, not to put you on the spot, but you have some history with me in the whole communication with Southwest 328th Street, and whether it was effective or not, I don't know. But I would like to try to do the same thing. If we can't get any movement from the contractors or the supervisors or the project manager, whomever is responsible to give us the knockdown, drag out date. It's not going to take them that long to repair all that road. It's just they got to get out there and do it, similar to what we saw on Southwest 328th Street. It wouldn't have taken 4 years to recreate that road. They didn't put anybody out there to do the work. So if you can, I think Councilman Fletcher said it specifically, get us some dates and times, starts and completion times as best as you can. And if you need assistance from us, I'm sure we're happy to send emails out to these folks and let them know. We've got a newly elected mayor in Miami-Dade County. She chimed in on some of those emails that we sent to the project managers and those guys that say, hey, look, if these guys can't get it done, let's pull them and let's put somebody else in there. So if we put pressure on them, maybe we can get some stuff done, because these roads have been neglected. That road on 137 Avenue lead into the Speedway is embarrassing, and it should be embarrassing to a mayor of the county. It should be embarrassing to the district commissioner of that area, that these roads are in those conditions when you've got tourists and people coming in. They're not going to be back here until next year now, so they got a whole year to make it look pretty for the next group of people that come in for NASCAR. So, but more importantly, the safety along 344. People call and complain they can't drive with a cup of coffee in their hand because there's too many bumps on the road. So, thank you. I appreciate you. I know what we've been through the last couple of years on 328th Street. I appreciate your hard work and your dedication, and I know you'll get it done for us.
Thank you. We will.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brea. Appreciate it. All right. Is there anyone else online or in the auditorium for public comments?
Seeing none online.
All right. No one here in the auditorium. Anything further from the city manager?
One quick thing, Mayor. I'm sure everybody has heard that with the recent COVID-19 pandemic rescue plan that the president signed, there's quite a bit of money that's coming to the cities. At this point, we don't have all of the facts, but several $1 million is probably going to come to Homestead. We don't yet know the means by which it will come and or how it can be spent. It's obviously COVID related in some respect, but our attorneys are working on that, going through what was signed. And as soon as we have more information on that, we will bring it to you.
Thank you. Mr. Pearl? Further? Okay. All right. Councilman Fletcher?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Kate, for that update on the money that's coming in federally. I remember seeing an email. You kind of stole my thunder. I was going to ask a question about that. I remember seeing something that basically said we're going to get roughly $21 million, potentially to the city to support COVID issues with the CARES Act. So understanding now, we don't know exactly where all that is, and we have the attorneys working on it. I know you'll give us an update when the time comes where we're going to be able to utilize this money best for the community. So I appreciate that quick update. I have a couple other items. Unfortunately, tomorrow I'm not going to be able to attend the grand opening of the Cybrarium. due to the current COVID protocols that I'm on, I'm hopefully taking my last negative test tomorrow and looking forward to getting back out into the community. These last 14 days have kind of grounded me from the first time. You get stuck at home by yourself, just me and the dog. It gives you a lot of time to reflect on certain things that are important to all of us. So I'm ready to get back and start, beating the grounds and fixing the problems of the city. And I look forward to working with each of you all on that. One thing I do want to comment on too, that the mayor kind of stole the thunder on earlier. Again, I'd like to thank the city staff for their extremely hard work in preparation of grant applications and the follow through to ensure that we get the funding that is above and beyond our approved annual budgets. These funds continue to support city improvement opportunities and long-term betterment of our city services. Tonight was $6.5 million. If possible, could we get a running tally of grants from the beginning of the year that could be provided to all of us so we can, continue to, boast about your good works?
Absolutely. We'd be happy to provide that.
So I look forward to seeing that and continue to work harder to get additional grant funding out there as we move forward. The last item I have tonight, Mr. Mayor, is there have been several emails and telephone calls here recently in regards to delays in solid waste and bulk trash pickups. I know we've had some equipment issues. I know we've had some personnel out with some issues. Just want to make sure that we're communicating to the public that yes, we are having some backlogs and we're going to get to it as fast as possible. But understanding there are some of these communities out here that have standards and folks get fined or get notices, that they're not in conjunction with the community standards. So as we move forward with maybe some of this CARES Act funding, don't know if it can go to help possibly replace some equipment that's needed in our solid waste and department or personnel issues, but let's take a good look at that so we can make sure we're out there picking up those things on the timely schedule. I know we've had a lot of additional, bulk materials, due to folks working from home and being able to do home renovations, but we still have to get out there and get that stuff picked up. So if any of that fund is available to support those efforts, I would appreciate it.
We can absolutely look at that.
I want to wish it. Thank you, Ms. Manager. And with that, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. I want to wish each of you all a very happy weekend, and please enjoy the grand opening of the Cybrarium. I really do wish I could be there tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Fletcher. Councilwoman Bailey?
Thank you, Mayor. James, would you mind to start to read the, sorry, my computer died. So
I
this
can read
is
it, James,
basically
if you
for
want.
Mowry murals.
Yeah, sure.
Just to read the beginning for me.
Is it on? Okay. So this item is being brought on behalf of Councilwoman Bailey. This is a follow-up to some conversations from the dais that she's had before with respect to a proposed pilot mural program in the southwest neighborhood along Mowry Drive. And essentially, that pilot program would defines the Mowry Drive corridor and would allow for murals to be placed on buildings that are adjacent to Mowry Drive in this corridor. Excuse me. The way that the initial sort of structure is laid out is that this would be something that would be handled administratively once you all approve what the regulations are and the procedures. It's set up so that it could be administered by staff administratively to roll out the mural program. There's some details in your packet, an overview of how the pilot program is anticipated or is proposed to be structured, but of course, all of that is up for discussion and policy direction from you all with regards to how we want to move forward or would like to move forward.
Thank you, James. So basically, the vision, like we've mentioned before, is to build community morale, enhance the aesthetics, and really just showcase the unique cultures and history of the Southwest with murals along Mowry Drive. So the goal with what you have before you is to just help set those perimeters to make sure that we have a smoother process for the applicants and let it just be handled administratively. So I want to thank Michelle, Dennis, James, our Art and Public Places Committee for all your guidance and help. A lot of great questions came up. You know, there's language in there to make sure that the applications are only for 2 years, so we can make sure that they are holding up their end, that it's not something that deteriorates and ends up looking worse than it is right now. So if there are any questions or any further comments, I would love to hear.
I would have one question. We talk about administrative approval, but in terms of vetting the actual content or look of the particular piece, how is that dealt with?
So that's probably the trickiest part, and that is why it has been so tedious. You know, it could go before Art and Public Places, then come before council. So what's in there right now is that it would be handled by our Development Services Director, approved by our director.
But
so Joe gets to be the Minister of Art.
It's probably a bad choice, but I'll accept the position.
So, Mayor, if I might, I could chime in to answer that question. So, the definition of mural would preclude any commercial message, both on-site or off-site. We have to be really careful because we're dealing in the realm of First Amendment free speech. And so, once we open the door, then we really have a limited ability to control what the message is. That's not really any different from the way that the current regulations work right now. In the sign code, there's the definition of mural, which precludes commercial speech. And the process is that it basically comes to you all for approval, but it's open to anywhere in the city. And I don't know if that was intentional or the history behind that, but this proposed change would be to take it out of the sign code, to remove murals from being citywide, and focus that on this Mowry corridor in the southwest neighborhood.
Oh, and just my thought process was, we have a public art committee. And generally, at this point, most of them are truly in the art community. And I'll be the first to admit I'm not. I can't draw a straight line with a ruler. I'm not in the art community. You kind of have I would prefer something sort of like we have with the relationship between planning and zoning and council. They deliberate and recommend, and we have the final say. And I would be more comfortable to have a recommendation come to us from those who are better versed as artists and artisans, and understand that whole world that I don't live in. Rather than, we make the analogy, we get the phone calls about a project. How in the heck did that happen? Well, it fell within the code, and our development services director approved it. And I think there's so much potential for controversy that I think it's incumbent, I think, on us to take that responsibility on, rather than having a staff member be the buck stop at the staff member. And for my preference and peace of mind, I'd love to have that two-tier review, once at the Public Art Committee with either acceptance or rejection by council.
I understand that concern completely, and I've attended the last few Art in Public Places meetings, and honestly, I'm sorry that I haven't before. I don't know why I assume one of the other council members was over it, but they have amazing plans, and I think the difference between what they are working on and this project is that this will be private businesses or even a few homeowners deciding that they want something on their wall. So it's not really, like Art in Public Places are deciding where we could have more sculptures for the public to see. And the reason that I think Mowry Drive is such an amazing stretch of road is because it is tying our downtown into the southwest. There are so many programs there already that have that are geared to our Haitian communities, our African American communities, our Mexican American communities, and a lot of old standing businesses that I think would love to do something that represents the Everglades or more of the historic part of Homestead. So I just feel like allowing those businesses to represent themselves would paint a beautiful picture of our city. So of course, I would love to see it too and say yes or no, but that's the thing, that's the risk you take with art, is that's how it turns into something. And then there's a 2-year application.
Fair enough. I say art's in the, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, art, whatever analogy you want to make. That's just where I'm coming from. There's a lot of risk there to just let it happen. Councilman Roth.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I agree, but art is an expression of personality as well. So we have to give some. I would look more at the logistics of the starting point and the ending point. Taking it from Chrome all the way to 187 Avenue is a very long stretch of road, and I'd feel more comfortable if it started at maybe 6th Avenue and went west to 187 Avenue. At least you have a buffer between the reinvigorated downtown area and any potential offensive, which it may be offensive to somebody else, may not be offensive to somebody, I don't know, controversial, freedom of speech things. I'm totally for the freedom of speech thing, but at least it wouldn't be directly on what we're trying to improve now in the downtown area. There used to be a tremendous mural right in Losner's Park. I forget the man's name that painted it. He passed away, but it was a total reflection of the city. And I think it was before you were in the city. I mean, it reflected agriculture, it reflected the Air Force Base, it reflected just everything about the city. And when they redid the Seminole Theater, they took it down, or years before that, I think they took it down. But I just think if we get it too close to Chrome Avenue, on the south side, you've got the parking garage, which I don't think they're going to do any murals on them. You have a few spotty buildings up until, so 2nd Avenue, I think 2nd Avenue to 187 might be a good starting place to do that. And I still like the fact that we might be able to get to see these things prior to, but then again, Joe took on the job, so it's yours, babe.
If I can just say that I also looked at a smaller piece that would make a big impact, but moving it further away, we're losing 2 important organizations that I know would do something great and are doing great things for the community. So That is the issue. You know, you've got Kicks almost at 187th, and you've got the Mexican American Council, and you've got the Movement Church that are right at the beginning there. So that was the reasoning for moving it a block, obviously a block away from historic downtown. I agree completely. That's something we do not touch, but that's the reason for starting it where we did.
Thank you. Councilman Shelley wanted to weigh in.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I have some of the same concerns, I guess, that you had raised, you know, regarding the freedom of speech and First Amendment rights and things of that. I have some experience because I've done a couple art programs myself, the Art in the Chambers, which now is, you know, Art in the Spotlight. And then we had a program where I think it was Miami-Dade County, that had provided us some art that we started posting in the public parks. And I remember that created some controversy because there was one of the pieces of artwork that had been posted and there was some sort of an event that occurred. I don't remember all the details now, but ultimately it ended up being quite controversial. And I know that the staff and the council got a bunch of phone calls about it as well. So I do have some concerns about having maybe that be an administrative matter as well. I do think that, you know, probably would be good to be either vetted through the art committee and or, you know, ultimately come through us for a final decision, even if it's just more of on a consent basis versus a formal debate. Just because it would allow us to at least kind of weigh in, even though we may be legally not able to weigh in a whole lot. But ultimately, if we decided to take a stand on something, then we could, and that becomes more of a policy decision versus having staff get involved. And as part of that goes as well, I think one of the things is maybe because you have a vision of what this corridor is going to look like. I think it's a great idea. I think it's going to be fantastic. I think it could be almost a tourist draw. You know, so I do somewhat like the idea of it going all the way to Chrome, because if this develops the way I think that you want it to develop, you know, it could be something where you're in the downtown district and it draws you down that roadway. It makes you want to go down there and see this mural, you know, this art. But because you have a vision for it, you know, and this is something, I guess, a question for James. I mean, we could, to try to eliminate some of the controversy, because one of the issues I always found when I was doing my art in the spotlight is that it's kind of open to any type of art. And so it was hard to then narrow it down because you were wanting to encourage all sorts of creativity and displays of art. But in your case, you might be able to could we limit it by subject matter or any type of, not subject matter, but as in like types, history, agriculture?
Yeah, I think that we would be very careful. We would tee it up to encourage that murals contemplate, you know, the historical, the cultural aspects with regards to the city, the positioning between the Everglades and Biscayne National Parks, the downtown, you know, designated historic district, those types of things you can do. But these mural programs oftentimes reflect socially what's happening, and they, you know, it's meant to be sort of a breathing, living sort of thing and changes. And that's how all the successful mural programs are around the country. So we have the ability to do a little bit with that. But again, once we open the door and we do it, then, you know, we're somewhat constrained with regards to, you know, if we don't like something, we're not going to be in a great position legally. And let me just contrast this for a moment, because, you know, in the sign code, any commercial message could be substituted for a non-commercial message. You don't have any choice in that. It's just black letter law. It can happen. If a business wanted to do that. So here, taking it out, we're defining it as public art, not as a sign, not as, you know, commercial speech. We have parameters that say the majority of it should be pictorial and not written words, those types of things, those parameters that, you know, we could adhere to. But it's tricky. It's touchy.
Okay, because that's what I was envisioning. It was, you know, again, kind of a corridor that speaks to Homestead history and things that made it, whether it be agriculture, would be the Everglades and the national parks, you know, and trying to focus people on those types of genres might be a way of limiting some of the controversy. I know what I envision, or not envision, but what I'm more familiar with is like in Gainesville, You have a wall, and I don't think it's even regulated by any government entity. I think it just happens organically, and they just allow it to happen. But you have a roadway where there's just this concrete wall, and for years and years and years, students randomly go and pick a square, and they paint. And maybe one weekend it's one thing, and the next day it changes to something else. And it's really neat to see. It's kind of a destination on its own. But I don't think that's regulated, or if it is, they turn a blind eye to it. But it's a neat way of the community expressing themselves, and it could be, that's not quite what we're looking for, because they may announce somebody's birthday, that's not what we want. But ultimately, it's kind of its own organic development. So, but I think it's a great idea. I support it 100%, and I look forward to seeing how it develops.
I really appreciate everyone's comments. There's one thing that I wanted to mention. I wanted to make sure that Kicks mural came before us, before this came, just to give an idea of some of the thoughts that some of these businesses have had. And I have sat down and reached out to many of the businesses on Mowry to make sure that there was interest. And that's definitely my goal. It's not to just let this go and see what happens. It's really to get that engagement in the history and the culture and have that pride. Even churches, new ways to reach youth. So that's something that I would definitely stay on top of and send proposals out with some ideas. So I just wanted to make sure that was on. Thank you.
Councilwoman?
Thank you, Mayor. I support this item. I think that this should also come to us for approval first. If we are able to keep the language where the director is the administrative approver of it, but brought to us for review under city manager business, then I think it accomplishes the goal, where we're able to review it, approve it, and it gets approved by, signed off by the director. Thank you.
So James, can you speak a little bit to how much more that would mean for each application? What the dollar
Well,
amounts?
I mean, the one thing that we haven't talked about, I've had conversations with Councilman Bailey and with staff, is that, you can set up something, an application that's pretty straightforward, and, people can come in, they can, file their application with staff. Staff can do the initial review of it. But then every time you add a layer of regulation, it's more time and it's more resources. So the application would come in to the department, Development Services would do the initial on it. Then it would have to be scheduled for the Public Art Committee. And then they're a recommending body. So then that recommendation would then move forward to you all. So, I can't speak to what the staff cost or the staff resource time that would take. I don't think it would be a super sophisticated, in-depth review if you upfront determine, okay, you're submitting something to scale, we know what it's going to look like, all those details. But there is, that added, if you do the layers, it takes more time and it could potentially cost more.
There.
Yeah, that's not my goal either. I'm thinking more along the lines of getting the committee to give it, for lack of better words, the blessing, and then Development Services giving it a go. I mean, it's got a time limit on the painting of it. You'll be hands-on in the project. Public Arts Committee will have their say in it as well. So if there's a recommendation for approval, the director can sign off on it. And if there's not an approval recommendation, then they can apply to come to us and go through those motions. Is that not an option?
Well, the way that your code's structured right now with regards to boards and committees, the Public Art Committee has a defined task in their duties, and they're not the final say, and they, we would have to you'd have to give them final authority or sign off if you wanted it to stop with them. That's not how it's set up. You know, with the ability to appeal to council if it's an unfavorable decision or determination. So if you want to head, if you want to head down that path, then we would have to like modify the structure of the Public Art Committee so that they have the authority and the ability to cover those tasks and duties.
And this item, it proposes the code amendment for something of that nature, does it not?
No, this item basically would, well, yes and no, right? Depending on how you all want to move forward. This item basically gives just a general overview and framework of the initial concept of how this would move forward and how it would be, you know, the idea of this this corridor along Mowry Drive. It's contemplated that staff would do the approval, but if you're thinking that you just don't want staff to do it, that you want another layer, then it could happen. I just need direction on how you want to do it. I'm just telling you all that right now, the Public Art Committee can't be the final authority with respect to whether or not a mural is approved, because they're just a recommending board to the council. And they're, as defined in the code, their mission, their duties are limited to certain things, of which this is not, final authority is not part of.
Could we iron out those details after we approve the general mural program?
Yeah, I mean, you could, but I think you would want to, the moment that you adopt this and you implement it, you're going to have the process in place to be able to, you know, the moment you approve this, the next day you should have the application available to folks and the process laid out and set forth as to how it's going to go or how it's going to run through the approval proceed.
Okay, well, for the purposes of continuing the discussion, I'd like to motion to approve the pilot mural program. And if we get a second, then we can continue to discuss.
Mr. Mayor, question?
Councilman.
I'm sorry, I lost connectivity there for a couple of minutes, but how do they do it in the city of Miami? I'm sorry, James, how do they do it, like Wynwood?
James, I can chime in. Michelle. So we contacted the city of Miami. I'm getting some feedback, I apologize. We contacted the city of Miami and specifically asked about the Wynwood area. There's actually no review by the city for that area. It's not even administrative. An artist or a property owner has an idea and they paint the building as such.
Thank you.
I'll piggyback on to what Michelle said, but they have defined, they have an overlay area that is this Wynwood that allows for these, you know, folks to do these types of mural projects. So you just, not everybody and anybody can do it, but if you're in the overlay area, that Wynwood area that allows for it.
Okay, thank you for that. You know, I think it's a very difficult thing to continue to add levels of bureaucracy on top of, you know, for approval of art. I think it's something that you know, the art board should take a look at. You know, I think we need to change their charter personally to allow them to have the authority to give some approvals on certain items. But those are just my thoughts. You know, I'm open to hearing what the other members have to offer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. So, I think we have, at this point, an unseconded motion to approve what's before us tonight, where if it meets the technical criteria, that's the end of the analysis. The determination by the Development Services Director that the criteria from a technical standpoint are met for a given mural, if this passes as moved, that's the process we would have within that defined area alone, with safeguards in there for upkeep and covering up at a certain point, or refreshing it. It's just, it can't be allowed to go derelict. That's what's essentially before us, and there's a motion to that effect with no further, and I hate to use the word, but nothing else comes to me at this point, no further oversight as to what gets put on a wall on the Mowry corridor.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if I could, I understand everyone's concern, so I'm happy to work with Councilwoman Bailey, and we can certainly come back with a draft ordinance, and it could be teed up in the alternative where there's parallel reviews, right? Staff, and then you can see what it looks like if we give the Public Art Committee the authority, the ability to do that with the right to appeal to you all, if you wanted to proceed in that manner.
Councilwoman first, and then you, Councilman Roth.
Thank you. I withdraw my motion, and I'll motion for our attorney to proceed with suggesting said language. Thank you.
Well, I don't know that even needs a motion. You would just bring it back based upon the comments that we make tonight, rather than moving that process. Councilman Roth?
Not to beat a dead horse, but you mentioned three prospective properties already that wanted to do this already, right? So in my mind, I'm trying to think, are we trying to create a new art district in the city that we're going to require or request a lot of people to do this, or are these the only three that have requested it so far? Because I have a hard time just saying, take Mowry Drive and paint it up the way you want to paint it up. I just have a hard time with that. And I don't think that does any good to the people that live west of 187th Avenue. They got to drive that road every single day. So I'm just trying to,
Have you driven that road lately? Because it is not, nobody should. I understand I'm sorry.
It's okay.
It's
okay.
I understand the concerns, and trust me, I am nervous about it as well. But yeah, if you drive down that road, it would be, whatever businesses would be willing to do something to give back to their community, to show some more community pride, to reflect our culture, and make it more of a statement piece, not the negative type of statement piece that it is right now. That's my goal. But I am perfectly fine with coming back next month. I'll even come with a few letters from some of the businesses and organizations that I've spoken with so far, just so you can also get a better idea of what their vision would be. And I think that would.
Yeah, that's fine. And look, I am not under any circumstances comfortable with purely administrative approval. If we need to amend the governing documents for the Public Art Committee, as perhaps James has suggested, where they as artsy people get to pass on it, and if the applicant doesn't get the result they're looking for, they can come to us. It's just kind of a checks and balances, for lack of better expression. But I mean, love and support the concept, but I cannot support the implementation as presently proposed. You want to bring it back?
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor?
I have a couple more announcements, please. On April 5th, I'm partnering with Walking One Stop SOS and the Homestead Police Department to knock on doors in the Southwest and offer a variety of resources. I would like to invite any of my council members, any of my colleagues to join. I will definitely have an invitation sent out to your assistance. I think it's going to be a really great thing. They've hosted quite a few getting closer, further south, and I've seen what a big impact they can do, and I think it would be great for our city. April 5th. It's a Monday morning. That is, I know, that is that's their time for Walking One Stop. But I'll make sure to send over all the details. Next, the Southwest Advisory Committee is hosting another community conversation. This will be March 27th at 2 p.m. It'll be live on Facebook or via Zoom. So if anybody would like the link, obviously it will be on our Facebook page, but you can also email me at jbailey@cityofhomestead.com for that invitation. And lastly, this month we lost a great teacher and mentor at Homestead Middle School. And I just want to personally extend my condolences to Mr. Kim Hill's family, friends, and his students. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Shelley.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I got two items under my business, but I wanted to go back real quick to Councilman Bailey's item, just as it related to fee structure. I did want to at least just ask the question, do we have the ability, because I'm with the mayor on the safeguard side of things. I'd like to try to find a way to make sure that we have some ability to vet the artwork a little bit better, but do we have the ability to set a fee schedule or almost a non-fee schedule as you start talking about the cost of public hearings and things of that nature? Is there any type of equal protection, not equal protection, but as far as what we charge a developer versus what we would charge for a mural program applicant, permit of some type? Or can we just say that, it's, $10 and, because again, I support what Councilwoman Bailey's trying to do, which is encourage art. And the more barriers, cost or otherwise, it's not going to happen. The program will never succeed. So that's, I guess, my question is, how do we come up with a way to solve what the mayor has concerns about, and myself and Councilman Roth and some others as well, but still not make it cost prohibitive or ultimately make the program unsuccessful? And I just want to make sure that's a possibility.
I don't have the exact answer for you. We can certainly explore that and talk with the city manager's office and with staff. But you all, as the policymakers, have the ability to establish whatever fee or non-fee for an application that you would like. I agree that the more expensive you make it, it's going to become an obstacle instead of incubation approach. And like in all applications, the cost of the application and review have to be commensurate with the actual, the review. Even though you might be adding some layers here, it's not going to be a huge, complicated application. So I think that, if you wanted to establish, a lower application review fee, I think you could do it, but I would have to defer to staff to weigh in on that.
Perfect. No, that's just why, as you guys bring back something for us to review, that would be one of the things, is to balance that review process versus the fee process, or hopefully very little fee process. So I just wanted to weigh on that as we move forward. So
it's envisioned that whatever we do, that there would be a resolution that would set forth the fee, so that you could modify that and change it, and it's not in the ordinance that requires first and second reading, similar how we do all of our fee our fees by resolution.
my thing was, I just know like some of the developers complain it cost them $20,000 to go through the public hearing process because you had a public hearing. I don't want something similar to happen just because we got a public hearing. That was my main point. So, all right, thank you. First item I have is tab 20, which is Dark Sky Week at Everglades National Park. So the Miami-Dade County has encouraged this year to have a dark sky week where they bring attention to light pollution that happens, you know, if you live in Miami, if you don't happen to live in Homestead, if you haven't been out the Everglades National Park, a lot of people don't realize the numeration of stars that you can see under dark circumstances. So there's a new moon the week of April 5th through the 12th, and so they're encouraging education. They'll probably do presentations in front of various elected bodies. They'll have different experts talk about what a dark sky means. They'll talk about regulations that cities can enact for purposes of new lighting as they go forward with the developments. But one of the things is getting them down here into South Dade and getting them into the Everglades to actually see a dark sky themselves. So as part of that, they're looking to have an event either at Ernest Cove Visitor Center or the Royal Palm Visitor Center, probably on April 9th or April 10th. And so the request before you tonight is whether or not we can utilize the use of the city trolley to transport people from, say, downtown Homestead to the particular event and back. Again, you're encouraging people to either come through our downtown on the way to this event or stopping back at one of our establishments on the way back from seeing the dark skies. And so just historically, I think somebody's had to get permission to utilize the city trolley, so that's what I'm here before you, is asking permission to utilize the city trolley for this purpose.
Oh, I guess in that regard, there's some cost involved with the drivers and probably overtime type. Do we have an estimate of what that might be? 'Cause I'm thinking if you have a good turnout, you might need 2 or 3 different trolleys, correct?
Yeah, correct. They're still working out the details as far as exactly what the event will look like and whether it'll be just 1 trolley or 2 trolleys. I know it used to be about $80 or $90 an hour for the trolley. I'm not sure what the current rate is now.
It's 96.
So it's $96 an hour per trolley, depending on how many hours the event would take place. Probably be a 3 or 4 hour event to get people there. And so I guess one of the questions would whether or not utilization of the trolley, would the city cover those expenses? If not, I'm willing to cover as much of those expenses out of my own account as necessary to make the event happen, as long as you guys authorize the use of the trolleys for this purpose.
I don't feel there's any objection to that. It brings people to Homestead and showcases our trolley, and I'm sure that, somewhere among our accounts and the manager's budget, we can find a way to make that happen. Any objections to that? No. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. And then the second one is tab 21. I'll briefly introduce this and probably turn it over to the city attorney. I don't remember how many years ago it was now, maybe four years ago or so, 3-4 years ago. There was a request by Chief Judge Bailey at the time to acquire some Everglades-related artwork that the city had in our possession that was essentially sitting in storage and was deteriorating, that she had wanted to put up in the courthouse. And so it came before us. I communicated with her and then ultimately asked my colleagues whether they were okay with that. And we entered into an agreement with them to essentially lease or loan this artwork to the courthouse for public display purposes. And now they have gotten a grant from, I guess, the county's art and public places for about $100,000 to restore this back into its normal and pristine state. But to do so, they need us to now, instead of loan it to them, essentially we need to give it to them in fee simple so that they will now own it. And so that's what's before you tonight, is whether or not we are okay with transferring full ownership to the courthouse for purposes of allowing them to rebuild the artwork. And I'll turn it over to the city attorney for any additional questions or comments to that.
Yeah, I mean, Councilman Shelley summed up the history fairly succinctly. We loaned this art out. Former Chief Judge Bailey, she knew about this, approached Councilman Shelley. It was sitting in a storage unit under a water tower for a number of years. It had deteriorated. She's passionate about the art and wants to see it restored and displayed in the courthouse. She's actually available. She's logged in tonight if you have any specific questions about the origin of the art. But basically, as she has explained it, in order for the county to commit the art and public places funds necessary for the restoration in the courthouse, it will require the transfer of ownership. And so she's requested that tonight. She's here online to answer any questions you have. And I'll, depending on your direction, I'll prepare the necessary documents for transfer, if that's the will of the council.
First, welcome to Judge Bailey. Thank you for enduring the last 3 hours of our night. Just out of curiosity, what's the background on the art and the artist? And how did we come to have this piece?
I'm going to defer to Judge Bailey.
Well, it's like a detective story. So the artist, after whose work this is modeled, is a guy named Charley Harper, who has become to be kind of a famous mid-century artist. He did a number of projects for the National Park Service that are very graphic, sort of parks advertising, posters advertising various national parks. And at some point in time, he did paintings for Everglades National Park. Those original paintings are still out at the Everglades National Park in the Nike, stored in the Nike missile silo, which is where they have their curatorial storage. At some point, as near as we can figure out, the National Park Service then took these paintings and made these really large three-dimensional steel murals that were displayed out at Royal Palm. There's a number of them. They're quite large. They're 8 feet by 4 feet, really heavy. And they're three-dimensional, made out of steel and plastic. And and they were out of Royal Palm for many years. This is a great segue because I'm so glad you all are doing this Dark Sky event. Big fan of the Everglades, and we used to go out there all the time, and all of a sudden these murals disappeared. We didn't know what happened to them, and so over the years when I was out there, and I go out there fairly frequently, I would just kind of ask around, and nobody knew anything until finally I found a particularly elderly ranger out at Co. And he said, "Oh yeah, we gave him to Homestead." Okay, so started calling down to Homestead, and nobody knew anything about it. And I knew Joe Sirota quite well. We go way back, and I happened to be at his firm, and I saw all the Homestead pictures in their office, and I said, "Can you help me with Homestead and where these things might be?" And within a week, the Weiss Sirota firm had located them. They were in storage at the bottom of the Harris Field Water Tower. And to Homestead's credit, they were all wrapped up very nicely and corrugated, but they'd been sitting out there something like 10 or 12 years. And so started talking with Joe and with Matt. And we're, as you probably know, building a new courthouse, and we're really interested in displaying them in the new courthouse. And so we were trying to figure out, okay, how could we do this? And we went with the Art on Loan program because at the time it was kind of unclear as to how exactly they got from the National Park Service to Homestead. Well, it turns out, I've worked with the curator out at Everglades, that when the National Park Service expanded the gift shop at Royal Palm, they bumped into the area that these murals were displayed, and they decided, look, they weren't created by the artist, so we're going to get rid of them. And so they donated them to you all, and they're signing a mural to that extent. And so you guys just packed them up and put them in storage. So, and they're not in great shape. So to actually do the restoration, which is estimated about $100,000, the county Art and Public Places has to take title to them so that we can spend the APP money to restore them. I mean, literally, bless Dennis Mayton's heart. He helped. He had his guys put them in the back of a U-Haul for me. I drove them downtown. They're stored on the 24th floor of the courthouse, and I'm just trying to get these things fixed so we can display them and encourage people who are downtown and in and out of that courthouse all the time to explore this wonderful national park that's right on their doorstep that so many people don't even go to. So I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. That satisfies my historical curiosity. So, Mr. Pearl, what do we need to do to affect this transfer of ownership?
We need to declare that this is surplus property, and I prepared the resolution for this evening, if you'd like to proceed. It's a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, declaring certain personal property owned by the city to be surplus property, authorizing the city manager to dispose of such property in accordance with Section 2-440 of the City Code and providing for an effective date.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve the foregoing resolution?
I'll yield to Councilman Shelley.
Okay. Councilman? Moved by Councilman Shelley.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Avila. Is there any further discussion? Homestead's donation to the new courthouse. We get plenty of credit there. Yes.
We'll put a big plaque up.
Mayor, one last thing. You mentioned that it would be good as part of the donation to have some sort of a plaque as part of the art that shows that it was donated by the city of Homestead, just so that we make sure that we're kind of linked to this going forward.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilman.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Judge Bailey. All right. So, all in favor? Do we have a second, right? Yeah. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All right. That was easy.
Thank you very much.
Good night. Anything further, Councilman Shelley?
Nothing further, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman.
All right, everybody still awake? All right, I have some questions, I have some comments, some announcements, and some requests. Number one, it was brought to my attention that the canal behind the Keysgate Golf Course is in severe poor conditions, and that there is wildlife that is swimming in or trying to swim in that canal, and it is disgusting. So I did ask for information on the canal. I haven't received it yet, so I wanted to try to get some information tonight on who's responsible for the canal, why is it in the condition like that to begin with, and what can we do to mitigate that problem as soon as possible. Thank you.
The county's responsible for the canal, and we've already forwarded that information to them and told them to clean it up. Yes, I should say ask them to clean it up.
And how often have we reached out to them to clean up this canal, and when was the last time it was cleaned up?
I don't know the last time that canal was cleaned up. I don't know if we've reached out specifically with that canal, but we do reach out to the county on a regular basis when anything like that, we see anything like that, or it comes to our attention.
Okay, thank you. And if I can, I'll circulate those pictures because this is something that is just, it's appalling. It needs to be corrected ASAP. Okay, secondly, I did report some streetlights being out a couple times in front of Waterstone, the regular streetlights on Campbell Drive. Can I get some information as to why they're going out, why they continue to go out, and has it been rectified?
Are they ours or are they FPL?
I'm asking. The ones on Campbell Drive in front of Waterstone.
Okay, I'm not sure. Barbara, if you're on, if you know offhand if those are ours or FPL?
Yes, those are ours. We have a contractor who's been working on doing the repairs. They were actually hit and damaged, the underground circuits, by some work that FPL was doing in the area. And our contractor has been working on them for quite some time. He continues to find additional problems.
So FPL caused the damage and we're fixing it. Is that what I'm understanding?
It was a subcontractor doing work for FPL, yes.
And so when this happens, do we bill back FPL to correct it or to pay us back?
Yes, Councilwoman. We typically get in touch with the company that damaged our facilities, and we do bill them for the repair work.
Thank you. And do we have an ETA on when this is going to be corrected and finalized?
Well, I was told it was going to be completed this week. So I will double check on that and provide you with the information.
Thank you, Barbara. That's what I love to hear. So we'll follow up on those items later on this week. Thank you. Secondly, I do want to take a moment to recognize and send my sincere condolences to the family of Kim Hill. I believe that as a teacher dedicating his life to youth, that his legacy and his impact it will go on for many years to come. And speaking of youth, I think that it's important to also recognize some of the organizations that I recently worked with to bring some youth sports programs to J.D. Red Park. And I want to recognize the Rotary Club, the Kiwanis of Homestead Club, and This Is for the Kids, Inc., and a few others who pulled funds together to bring this project available to these children. So youth softball is a sport for girls, and I was hearing of families having to drive all the way to Isla Morada to find a program for their daughters. Otherwise, they were playing in co-ed groups and going through the motions of investigating what's going on and trying to find some solutions. It brought up some other issues that I was seeing and some challenges that I was finding that the coaches at J.D. Red Park were having to deal with. And I want to commend the Parks and Recs Department for mitigating those problems. They did clear out some drainage issues. They cleaned up around the seating. And I do believe that the lights that were reported as being out were fixed. So thank you to Parks and Recs for doing that. But there's still a problem when it rains. The clay on the baseball field at J.D. Red, the clay pours out into the sidewalk and into the drains, causing the same problem that is a very hard problem to fix, where it clogs the drains. So I am currently talking to some potential sponsors who could give us the grass that we would be able to use to create a border between the clay and the drains. And what I'm asking council is to just basically bless or give me the authority to continue to talk with the sponsor, talk with the vendor for the grass, and try to get this project completed. And it's our park, it's J.D. Red Park. And I would like to see this problem get solved. I know we don't have the money right now to put grass in, but if I can get the sponsor and I can get the project done, I'd like to see it happen. So that's my request, is to council to allow me to work with Pedro and try to see that through. Is that okay with you guys?
That's just part of being an elected official, I think, that when those type issues come forward to each of us, for whatever they may be, you take the initiative and work through the manager and her staff. And if you find sponsors and community benefactors, you do it. You just be very mindful of that management versus elected official bright line issue. How much grass are we talking about?
I don't know.
It's a lot of grass. It's about, I'd say, 12 to 16 feet of a perimeter from where the grass ends on the field and when the clay starts. So basically from like third base to home to first base, that perimeter between the dugout and the clay. But the reason why my understanding is that I need council's approval to request for the Parks and Recs Department to lay the grass. So I can get the sponsor for the grass, but my understanding is Pedro has confirmed that we have the labor to install the grass for free. So we can confirm that now, and if that's not the case, I'd like to hear some other options.
Well, let me ask the manager, let's say that if we accepted the donation of the sod or seed or whatever it may very well be, and it's just normal, routine parks and recreation repair, that's totally under your purview, correct? That's not something we would routine maintenance is not something we would get involved in. Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor, that's correct. You would not get involved in routine maintenance. I'm not familiar with what's being suggested or that there was a sponsor, so I don't know the extent of it. I don't know, Pedro, if you know more than I do about this, and or if this, as the councilwoman suggested, would be something that our staff could routinely do, or if this would be something that would necessitate being contracted out. Do you know?
If I can interrupt
So
for a
this is
minute,
the
I'm
first I
sorry.
hear of-
Pedro, I apologize, but this was something that he specifically replied to in an email confirming that the problem with the drains was because the clay is getting in it, and that there was a discussion between the coach and Parks and Recs about the solution being the grass being planted, but that there was no money for the grass through Parks and Recs, but that we could supply the labor. That was already emailed between myself, city manager's office, and Parks and Rec. So
I was aware of the fact that grass could correct it. What I wasn't aware of is the extent of it and or that there was a sponsor. So I'm just asking Pedro if he knows the extent of it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, previously the league had reached out to us that they were looking for a sponsor. So, and we told the league, yeah, absolutely, you know, we'll help you out with whatever you need. I didn't know that a sponsor now was found. This is the first I hear of this, so it's good news.
So Pedro, and is that something that we could do with our staff?
Yes, this would definitely be an inmate project, and you know, great news. They were back out today from a 3-week quarantine.
That is good news.
Definitely get them on it.
So the donation would just have to go through procurement, that it's
Yes, whatever the process
follows
is.
the proper
there's-
procedure, and
Yeah, there's a process we can walk you through for a donation. I don't think it has to come back to council. Matt, when we have a donation?
It's not I mean, this isn't going to take the form of an agreement, a grant. They're not installing it, so there won't be an easement that's been granted for
No.
installation. This is just going to be accepting sod.
I believe so. Councilwoman?
I'm
The sod supplier is not going to give us the sod for free. I'm going to have a sponsor pay for the sod.
No, I understand, but there's nothing expected, I think is what Matt was asking, for that person who's paying for it.
Correct.
So I just don't know if that donation of X number of dollars has to come back to council.
No, I mean, historically, this is kind of a one-off situation. It's not something we normally see. Historically, when things are donated, we accept them, or rather, the council will accept them. If you want to authorize Kate right now to accept the sod, I think that's okay. This is not something that's going to create a whole lot of legal issues for you. You know, there's no one's coming onto the property. This is going to be somebody dropping off a pallet of sod. That's what it sounds like.
yeah, I mean, it's really no different than if the hospital wanted to send you a truckload of masks at some point during the pandemic. Through the procurement process, you as manager have the right to accept that donation, and you tell us about it after the fact. Is that
actually
fairly accurate?
I think it's a little bit different only because when we did accept donations for the COVID, I had some authority that I don't necessarily have for the grass, so that's why I was just checking with Matt. But as Matt said, if the council now says, yes, the manager can accept the sod, we can accept the sod.
All right, so is there any objection to accepting a donation of the sod? Take the grass.
And that's a great thing because that's been an ongoing problem for a long time. And historically, it's been the inmates who have always cleaned out the dugouts. And when we lost them for so long, it did become much more of a problem.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll give you guys an update on the grass next time. And I want to announce that every Friday we are continuing our food distributions at the Women's Club of Homestead at 5 p.m. We're hoping to continue putting out food for up to 500 families every Friday. I also want to advise you all that I did have a meeting with Commissioner Danielle Cohen-Hagens, and we spoke about various topics, and we had multiple community members present for that meeting. And I was happy to hear that she is going to be investing time and hopefully funds into expanding programs for our youth, including sourcing funds to help with the maintenance issues that we're having because of the lack of funding in our budget right now with Parks and Recs. And some of the other challenges that we've been having with drug and sex trafficking within certain areas of our community. We'll be working together to launch a education campaign to help identify and report trap houses and things of that nature. So I was excited to hear that her investment into our community is happening right away. Other additional members of the community were bringing some serious concerns with regards to the farm worker community, and such as unlawful evictions and some living conditions, and also requesting for support on community IDs and seal programs to kind of come up with an image or a seal to identify safe businesses to do work with, so they're not being exploited. So I just wanted to give you an update on some of those important topics that I think we all share importance on. And I think lastly, I want to just thank the sponsors and those of you that attended the Dairy Queen Community Car Show in in District 5. It was a success, I think, by all measures. A lot of families getting together outside in the open air, a lot of hand-holding with their children, a lot of smiles, and great cars. We have a huge car community down here, and I would have never thought that. So it was very nice to see that. And I'm hoping for a very cheerful and exciting grand opening tomorrow for our Cybrarium. And I will table the rest of my items for next time. Thank you. Oh, Mayor, I apologize. Those are additional things. I do have tabs, if I may. Thank you. So under tab 22, these are some examples of monuments around the state of Florida and other parts of the country. We have a Welcome to the City of Homestead monument in our entrance. It's a very humble and beautiful piece. I do love the style of it, but I would like for the council to consider adding the recognition of the civic clubs that do so much in our community so we can celebrate that relationship and encourage more collaboration, because the sponsorships that we got for the Youth Softball League, that was through civic involvement, civic club involvement. The sponsorship for the grass that I'm referring to, that is through civic club involvement. So there are some examples in here of what to look for. I'm not asking for approval on this right now, but what I do need is direction or authority to give direction to the staff to continue to look at some options and come back with a proposal and a design for us to consider. So I'd like to somehow recognize the Rotary Club, the Kiwanis Club, and the Seroptimus Club, MUHED, different organizations that we can through this process.
Interesting enough, in years past, we did have those types of signs where, and I recall there being one on Chrome Avenue and 21st Street as you came into the city that probably had Rotary, Kiwanis, JCs, and maybe Seroptimus. Various windstorms and hurricanes, road work takes those away, and they've not been replaced. So certainly, those are some of those, hometown, small town things that I think we've lost that we do need to get back in some other form other than them hanging on a chain link fence like I've seen in some travels and where some of them used to here. I think, isn't it, Mr. Corradino, is it on US 1 at the entrance to Pinecrest, maybe in the median there at about 136th Street? Or I think it maybe as you come into Palmetto Bay. Yeah, as you come into Palmetto Bay going south on US 1 out in the median, I think, or on one of the median or the shoulder of the road, there's a pretty nice looking monument sign that designates the community and does, pay tribute to those service organizations. Take a look at something like that as well. In the package, I didn't know if you were getting it kind of rebranding or welcoming signs, or we're focused on, again, acknowledging the service groups.
Well, staff was asking for direction from council in order to proceed with putting effort into that project. And it's interesting because when I was discussing this item, nobody knew that, you know, kind of what I was talking about. And the fact that one even existed, it would have been interesting to see what that looked like. We didn't have a file on it or anything. So I think what I want for tonight is just authority to continue looking into the idea and coming back, bringing back some ideas. But staff needs the authority or the direction to move forward.
I don't know, does anyone have a problem with staff continuing to look at identifying some potential locations as well as styles for, and not necessarily the branding, but, you know, limited at this point to the service organization monument things, co-locating with the Welcome to Homestead signs. And if you go up and take a look, you know, Palmetto Bays is pretty well done. It really catches your attention if you want to go up and take a look at that one. And I think probably our biggest obstacle would be finding a location, proper locations at this point. And maybe in the future, as we again look at the jet in its existing location, that, you know, if we determine not to move it, maybe some re-landscaping and redesign around that area and positioning, just as an example. But I don't know, does anyone have any objection to staff, you know, perhaps identifying a few sites and bringing some design ideas back to us? No?
Okay, thank you on that item. And then on the next item I have is April is Month of the Military Child. It's designated to honor the sacrifices made by military families worldwide. And so as such, I would like to request for April 15th for us to light up the City Hall in the color purple on April 15th to recognize that.
Any objections to making the building look like Barney on
For the children.
Did you? Yeah. If they do it at Christmas, I've seen them changing out the disc. It's pretty straightforward. We do it in-house, right? Yeah. Do we have purple?
We've already reached out to try to get purple. We don't have it yet, but we're trying.
Well, if we ever get to celebrate Mardi Gras again, then we'll have purple for that, right?
Thank you, Mayor. April is also Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and as such, I'd like to recognize the Mujer organization, a one-stop domestic violence and sexual assault advocacy center and a certified rape crisis center. So they do so much for our community, right there, very close to us, and it would be remiss of me not to mention them, so I want to thank them for that. Last but not least, okay, I would like to announce that I am preparing what I call a meeting of the leagues within Parks and Recs, all the head coaches and program directors within our parks departments. I'd like to have that meeting sometime in May, and in preparation for that meeting, I'm calling on the public to reach out to me. Call me on my cell phone, 786-572-8655. Email me at eavila@cityofhomestead.com. What I'm looking for is just your personal experiences, suggestions on how we can improve the programs that we provide as a city to the residents who are paying for the services to begin with through their taxes, and oftentimes paying to even register their children to participate, and then bringing those ideas to the table, to a round table, to try to make sure that the city is getting what we're supposed to be getting from these programs as a result of the contracts, and making sure that the programs are getting their end of the bargain with result to the contracts, and that at the end of the day, our residents and the children are getting what they're supposed to be getting as a result of everything altogether. So just starting that conversation, and I look forward to hearing from the community on that output, and that'll be in May. Thank you. That's it, Mayor. Thanks.
You gonna do Kia Drive?
Oh, Kia Drive. I apologize. Kia Drive is a street off of Tennessee Road. If you go down Campbell Drive, you make a left to go south on Tennessee. There's a little road called Kia Drive. A lot of families live in there. Some duplexes, highly Hispanic population. And at the end of Kia Drive is a cul-de-sac. In that cul-de-sac, you have a piece of grass in the middle that has a light pole and I believe a transformer, I think Julio confirmed. But the grass in that area is perpetually, and I say perpetually because I've driven down Kia Drive for 10 years working with a client there. It is constantly 3, 4, 5 feet tall. There is constant problems on that street with bulk trash. They did mitigate the problem recently, but it's always happening. The problem with that grass is that it is a piece of land that used to be part of an association. The association has gone defunct since Andrew. There's no particular responsible party to cut the grass on a regular basis so that it's not a huge eyesore and a problem for trash and stuff to build up. My solution, or I'd like to recognize that code enforcement has gone out to make sure that it gets cut every once in a while, but it's not a solution to the problem as confirmed by city manager's office. What I'd like to suggest is that we get a quote to just remove the grass, simply remove the grass, leave the transformer there, leave the light pole there, but extend the pavement area to this, on top of this grassy area. It is no larger than perhaps the podium. So I don't think that this is going to be a huge cost for us to incur, but I have brought it up to the city manager's office and they have advised that we need council direction to authorize them to provide us with an estimate on what it would cost to get it done. And I would assume that because of the cost, it probably would be within their realm of being able to approve. So with that, I'd like more direction on how to proceed.
Okay, Madam Manager, and I've seen the aerial pictures, is that while it used to be under the maintenance of an HOA that is apparently now defunct, is it publicly owned property? Is it a City of Homestead road? I mean, is that our power pole or is it an FPL pole?
Yeah, that's our pole. Yeah. I don't know the answer to that actual turnaround there. I'm assuming that there's some sort of easement, utility easement, since we have a transformer and a pole there. But in terms of ownership, I don't. If the HOA once had control of it, I'm assuming they had ownership as well.
You know, I guess my question is do we own it? What is it a private road and the pole was there by utility easement, or was the right-of-way dedicated to us? And from a practical standpoint, it kind of aggravates me that of all the people who live around that cul-de-sac, nobody could take 5 minutes with their own weed eater and go out there and clean up something, you know, reportedly the size of the podium, because, you know, if we pave it, one day it'll need to be repaved, and those same property owners will be looking to us that you need to fix your pavement or your concrete. It just really seems like, you know, nobody's in the neighborhood is taking any initiative. It seems to me, and looking very quickly today, that a lot of the ownership is in landlords. They're not necessarily owner occupied. It's probably 50-50, but, you know, come on, people. I mowed the vacant lot that abuts my backyard for 10 years after the guy who owned it walked away from it and nobody else would take care of it. And we're talking about, you know, 10 square feet. Nobody's got a weed eater they can go out there with. Everything can't be our responsibility.
If I may respond to that? Thank you, Mary. The problem with that piece of land is that there's also trash and bulk trash that gets put there. So it's almost impossible to be able to just weed whack the grass away. But it is a problem that we're having to mitigate anyway, whether we own it or not, and our resources are already being spent there to cut the grass and to fix that problem whenever the grass gets too high. So I'm trying to come up with a permanent solution to the problem on a very troubled street that is a perpetual problem.
I get it, but come go for a ride with me some Monday morning and let's look at Northeast Chrome Terrace. And let's look at a lot of places where mounds of garbage appear every weekend. We can't go putting these kinds of Band-Aids on everything. Again, I guess my basic question is, as a real estate practitioner, who owns it? Do we own it?
It's actually being advised that it's a private road. What we'd have to know is when the HOA got dissolved. I don't know when. I don't know if you know when. There may have been a process by which they turned it over to the city, but I don't know. And I would kind of think if they just dissolved, they didn't do that. They just left it. I don't know. I'm assuming it's still a private road unless they turned it over to the city and the city accepted it. But I'm also assuming if the city accepted it, they would have known about it and maintained it. But yeah, I don't know right now. We could confirm that it was never turned over, but I just don't have that answer right now.
Mayor, and that's my challenge, is that the answers to the questions, the research can't be done without the direction of council. So what I'm asking for tonight is for us to give them the direction to decide whether or not the city can provide the solution to this problem. If we own it, if we don't own it, we don't have the answer.
I don't have a problem with making that determination as to, whether it's our light pole, whether it's our right of way, just who's responsible for it and what it might cost to fix it and what those implications are.
Okay, that's all I'm asking.
I don't know who's filling you in, but look, we're doing major title work right now on the mitigation property. That didn't take council direction. We pulled title work on Harris Field already in anticipation of Lay Jardine. So, I don't know who's giving you the information that all of these little routine administrative things need council approval.
Mayor, that direction is being given to me by our city manager's office, and I understand why, and I would appreciate more flexibility in being able to communicate my requests and try to get answers so that I'm bringing fuller, more clarified requests to the dais, but currently that's not the direction I'm being given as the proper procedure. So that's why this item is on the agenda for tonight.
Just as a point of clarification, I understand what you're saying, and Councilwoman, I understand what you're saying as well, but what we were being asked to do was to make the improvements on the road, and that was what we wanted to make sure that the council gave us direction on. So my apologies if there's any confusion with respect to getting certain information like the ownership. We, of course, are happy to do that. Again, I thought that the request was something that the council would have to approve because it necessitated some significant work there, because there were also suggestions that maybe the transformer could be moved, and there were a lot of different things that would be quite expensive. So again, if there was some miscommunication, my apologies, but for sure, we're here to help and guide as best we can for all the council people.
I appreciate that, Madam Manager, but I have to correct you. Not only was the email specific in just a request for a quote for grass to be repaved, we had an hour-long conversation as to what the request was, where I reiterated the same, and that item was left on deaf ears and told to put it on my agenda. So I don't believe that there was any miscommunication, and I feel I am clearly explaining the direction that I was given was to bring this item to tonight to discuss at 9:40 at night, because we've got nothing better to do. So I would love the opportunity for this item to get researched. Let's figure out if we own the land, and let's pave it if we can. And if not, I'll find a sponsor for it. Thank you.
I think we can do the research, see what the background is, and then go forward with some direction based upon the results of that research. All right. Was that it, Councilwoman? Okay, thank you. All right, Councilman Roth, anything tonight?
No.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll just mention one because I know it's really late. I've been having conversations with staff through the city manager regarding a concern that I had for the name of a plat in a certain sector of our community. It's entitled, well, it's called Tatum's Colored Town. And I think it's very important for us to move from that era and rid our community of remnants of that type of past. So the city manager and her team has been researching the statutory provisions in order to rename that plat from Tatum's Colored Town. And we received information, I believe, from the county that an ordinance has to be passed by the city in order to effectuate that process to rename the plat. So, Kate, do we have any update on where we are with that ordinance, and when do we anticipate that will be brought to this body for a determination whether or not we want to move forward with the renaming of Tatum's Colored Town?
Vice Mayor, this is James. We are working with the city manager's office. We're going to be bringing forward a ordinance for first reading in April for consideration by the council with respect to renaming that plat following the statutory provisions.
Okay, thank you. So April is when we can anticipate that. Thank you for the update. And finally, I just want to acknowledge the women leaders in our community. It's National Women's History Month, and the theme for this year is 2021 Women, Valiant Women of the Vote, Refusing to be Silenced Even in a Pandemic. So I just want to thank the women leaders who courageously lead in this community and take up space, particularly my esteemed colleagues, Councilman Jennifer Bailey and Councilman Erica Avila. Happy Women's History Month, and continue the work that you do to lead fearlessly and courageously in our community. Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing further.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I know it's late. Really quickly, I want to thank staff for their weeks and weeks of persistence, wherever it took to be persistent, to get the vaccination center that the county's doing out at the stadium. I understand that it's running more smoothly than most of the others. There's perhaps some potential to expand capacity, and it's something that was sorely needed, not only by our community, but the greater South Dade community at large. There are a lot of other things to talk about, but it's been a long night. I look forward to opening the doors to the Cybrarium tomorrow, and I know there's a lot of excitement in this community about people going in and seeing what that building has to offer at 2 o'clock. So with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Good night.